Hello there, and welcome to Physics with William, where curiosity gets cozy, the universe lowers its voice, and science takes the scenic route towards sleep. Tonight, we are drifting into a strange and quiet place, not far out among galaxies, not deep inside a particle accelerator, but somewhere much closer and somehow much harder to reach. We're going into the dreaming mind, that private theatre that opens after the lights of ordinary awareness go dim, where faces return, rooms rearrange themselves, impossible events feel perfectly natural, and some hidden part of you seems to speak in images rather than words. The topic tonight is the quantum theory of dreams and consciousness. Now, before we go any further, let us be gentle and careful with that phrase. We are not saying that every dream is secretly powered by quantum machinery in a proven scientific sense, or that your dream about losing your shoes in a supermarket is directly caused by tiny particles having a very dramatic evening. Science has not settled the mystery of consciousness, and it certainly has not handed us a neat little instruction manual for dreams. But quantum physics gives us metaphors that are almost too interesting to ignore. It gives us ideas about hidden information, strange echoes, invisible patterns, and signals that return from systems too complex to see directly. And sometimes, when we are trying to understand the mind, especially the sleeping mind, a good metaphor can act like a small lantern in a very large cave. So tonight, we will explore a soft and careful possibility. What if dreams are not just random images thrown together by a tired brain? What if they are echoes from beneath ordinary awareness, patterns returning from hidden layers of the self? What if the mind, while the waking part of you is quiet, continues to observe, compare, remember, predict, and communicate in its own symbolic language? And what if the reason certain dreams feel so powerful is not because they come from somewhere supernatural, but because they rise from parts of the mind that see things before the conscious self is ready to name them? Before we step into that strange inner landscape, I would love to know where you are listening from tonight and what time it is in your little corner of the world. Are you tucked away in a quiet room after midnight, watching the shadows gather around the edges of the ceiling? Are you listening in the early morning while the world is still deciding whether to wake up? Or are you somewhere in between, letting this gentle journey keep you company while your thoughts slowly loosen their grip on the day? It is a fitting question for a topic like this, because dreams belong to the hours when clocks still move, but the mind begins to measure time differently. 5 minutes of dreaming can feel like a whole afternoon. A single image can carry years of memory. A stranger in a dream can feel more familiar than someone you met yesterday. The sleeping mind does not always follow the neat little rules we prefer when we're awake. If you find this kind of quiet, wandering, soothing, if the mysteries of the mind and universe help you settle down, I would be ever so grateful if you gave the video a like and maybe subscribed. It helps this small, sleepy corner of science reach other thoughtful people who may also be lying awake, wondering why the brain insists on turning old emotions into abandoned houses, school corridors, falling elevators, talking animals, or that one very specific dream where you suddenly remember you have an exam in a class you forgot to attend. The mind can be a remarkable storyteller, not always a tidy one, but certainly a committed one. Now settle in, let your shoulders soften, and allow the day to step back a little. There is no need to solve everything tonight. Dreams are not puzzles that must be cracked open with force. They are more like ripples moving across dark water. You can study them, yes, but you can also simply watch them arrive. Somewhere between neurons and symbols, memory and imagination, science and the deeper self, there may be a quiet story waiting beneath the surface. Dreams have always lived in a difficult place. They are deeply personal, yet strangely universal. Everyone dreams, or at least nearly everyone does, even if some people wake up with nothing but a faint feeling that something happened, and then slipped away like mist from a window. Across history, dreams have been treated as messages from gods, warnings from ancestors, tricks of the body, visits from spirits, fragments of memory, or just the brain cleaning up after a long day, like a tired theatre crew sweeping confetti from the stage after a very confusing performance. Modern neuroscience has given us a clearer picture, though not a complete one. We know that dreaming is connected with sleep cycles, memory processing, emotion regulation, and activity across different brain regions. During certain phases of sleep, especially the vivid dreaming associated with rapid eye movement sleep, the brain can be surprisingly active. The body lies still, or mostly still, but inside the skull, entire worlds can rise and vanish. The visual areas may light up, emotional systems may stir, memory networks may shuffle old material into new arrangements. Meanwhile, parts of the brain involved in strict logical control and waking judgment may become less dominant, which is one reason you can dream that your childhood kitchen is also a train station, and not question the architecture for even a second. This is one of the loveliest oddities of dreams. They feel real while they are happening, even when they make very little sense afterward. You can wake and say, wait, why was my old teacher living inside a lighthouse, and why did I think that was normal? But while dreaming, the mind often accepts the impossible with perfect calm. It does not pause to check building codes. It does not ask why the ocean is indoors. It simply continues. And this is where consciousness becomes mysterious. Because waking consciousness feels like a spotlight. It points at one thing, then another. It says, I am here. This is real. That happened yesterday. I must remember to buy milk. But dreaming consciousness is different. It is less like a spotlight and more like weather. It surrounds you. It changes without asking. It carries emotion, memory, sensation, and image all at once. You're not just watching the dream, you are inside it. Sometimes you're yourself. Sometimes you're partly yourself. Sometimes you're someone else and somehow do not mind. The question is not only why the brain dreams, but why the dream feels like experience at all. Why is there something it is like to be inside a dream? Why do images come with fear, longing, wonder, embarrassment, relief, or that very peculiar dream feeling that something is deeply important even though you cannot explain what it is? Consciousness is already difficult when we are awake. In dreams, it becomes even more slippery, because the world we experience is generated from within, yet it can still surprise us. It can frighten us. It can comfort us. It can show us things we did not know we were feeling. That is why the idea of an echo is so useful. An echo is not the original event. It is a return. A signal comes back altered by the space it moved through. If you call into a canyon, the sound that returns carries information about the canyon itself. It tells you something about distance, shape, depth, and hidden walls. In the same way, perhaps a dream is not a direct message written in plain language. Perhaps it is an echo from the mind's hidden terrain. It returns changed, bent through memory, emotion, fear, desire, and old experience. It may not tell you exactly what lies below, but it may reveal the shape of something you could not see directly. This does not mean every dream has a secret meaning waiting to be decoded, like a spy message hidden in a teapot. Sometimes dreams may be fragments of the day. Sometimes they may be emotional leftovers. Sometimes they may be the brain testing possibilities, rehearsing dangers, or filing memories in whatever strange filing cabinet the sleeping mind happens to use. And sometimes, yes, the filing cabinet appears to be on fire and full of frogs. The brain is efficient, but it is not always elegant. Still, many people know the feeling of waking from a dream that refuses to behave like random noise. A dream that stays with you. A dream with a person you have not thought about in years. A dream that seems to expose a fear you had been avoiding. A dream that leaves you with a decision, a warning, a grief, or a strange new calm. These dreams feel as though they come from a deeper room in the mind. Not necessarily from the future, not necessarily from another world, but from a hidden intelligence within the self. A part of you that has been listening while the louder waking mind rushed around making lists. This is where Carl Jung enters the story. Quietly but importantly, Jung believed that dreams were not meaningless clutter. He saw them as expressions of the unconscious, a deeper region of the psyche that holds buried emotions, forgotten memories, instincts, conflicts, and patterns of meaning that ordinary awareness may fail to notice. To Jung, the unconscious did not speak like a lecturer at a chalkboard. It spoke in symbols. It used houses, animals, water, shadows, journeys, strangers, old rooms, locked doors, and repeated images. The dream, in his view, was not nonsense. It was a message from the deeper self, though not always a simple one. Whether or not we accept all of Jung's ideas, the core insight remains powerful. The mind contains more than what we consciously know. You're not aware of every memory shaping your mood. You do not consciously track every subtle expression on another person's face. You do not notice every fear that changes your choices, every old wound that colours a reaction, every desire that hides beneath a sensible explanation. Much of the mind works below the surface. It observes quietly. It compares patterns. It stores emotional impressions. It recognises danger before language catches up. It knows the sound of a familiar footstep, the mood of a room, the weight of an unfinished conversation. During waking life, consciousness has a job to do. It must keep you functioning. It must help you cross roads, answer emails, make tea, pretend to understand printer settings, and remember that the laundry cannot remain in the machine forever without consequences. So it filters, it simplifies, it ignores most things. If consciousness tried to hold everything at once, every memory, sensation, possibility, fear and association, daily life would become impossible. You would be unable to choose cereal without entering a philosophical crisis about grain, childhood, agriculture, and the direction of your entire existence. Sleep may loosen that filter. When the waking mind relaxes its grip, deeper material can rise. But because it does not rise in neat sentences, it appears as scenes. The mind does not say, you feel trapped by a situation you have not admitted is trapping you. It gives you a locked room. It does not say, you are afraid of losing control. It gives you a car with no brakes. It does not say, an old memory is still shaping your present. It gives you a childhood street, a familiar voice, a house that should not still exist but somehow does. This is not magic. It is symbolism, memory, and emotional pattern making. And the brain is very good at pattern making. In fact, it may be too good. It finds faces in clouds, meaning in coincidences, danger in rustling leaves, and sometimes betrayal in a text message that simply says fine. Pattern recognition is one of the great powers of the human mind. It kept our ancestors alive. It helps us predict what might happen next. But it also gives dreams their strange force, because while we sleep, the brain may connect distant pieces of experience that waking thought kept separate. Here the quantum echo metaphor becomes especially interesting. In quantum research, an echo can describe a way of sending information into a complex system, and later detecting a returning pattern that reveals something about hidden structure. The details belong to physics, and we do not need to carry heavy technical luggage into bed tonight. The important idea is simple enough. Something enters a complicated system. It becomes scrambled. Then, under the right conditions, part of it returns as a signal. The echo is not the original thing exactly, but it carries information about what happened beneath the surface. Dreams may work like that in a metaphorical sense. A moment from waking life enters the mind. A look from someone. A worry. A childhood memory stirred by a smell. A fear you dismissed. A hope you did not want to admit. During sleep, these things move through the deep networks of memory and emotion. They combine with older material. They're shaped by the body, the brain, and the unconscious. Then something returns. Not as a report, not as a clean explanation, but as a dream. An echo, a pattern coming back from the hidden layers. This may help explain why dreams often feel both familiar and strange. They are made from you, but not from the part of you that speaks most clearly during the day. They use your memories but rearrange them. They use real emotions but give them fictional costumes. They use actual concerns but place them in impossible settings. It is your mind, yes, but seen through a curved mirror. The dream says, here is something from beneath the surface, but it says it in the language of image, mood, and metaphor. And perhaps this is why some dreams feel prophetic. Not because they literally see the future, but because the unconscious mind may be very good at reading patterns before conscious awareness can explain them. Imagine you dream that a friendship is breaking, and a week later, the friendship does begin to fall apart. It may feel as if the dream predicted the future, but maybe part of you already knew. Maybe you noticed the pauses, the colder replies, the small withdrawals, the change in tone. Your waking mind avoided the conclusion, but the deeper mind kept the evidence. Then, in sleep, it formed a symbolic warning. Not prophecy in the supernatural sense, but prediction shaped by quiet observation. This does not make dreams less mysterious. In some ways, it makes them more intimate. It means that the mind may contain a hidden observer, not a separate being, but a deeper process that continues working when ordinary awareness is distracted. It watches patterns. It stores emotional truths. It builds simulations. It whispers through dreams because dreams are what happen when the usual gatekeeper falls asleep at the desk, perhaps with a cup of tea balanced dangerously close to the paperwork. There is also the question of why dream worlds can feel so real. In waking life, reality seems solid because the brain receives steady information from the senses. Light enters the eyes, sound enters the ears, the body feels pressure, temperature, balance, movement. The brain builds a model of the world from these signals. But while dreaming, the brain can build a world without outside input. It can create streets, rooms, voices, textures, faces, and movement from memory and imagination. The dream feels real because the same kind of world-building machinery is active. The difference is that the source has shifted. The world is no longer coming mainly from outside. It is being generated from within. That is a profound thought. Every night the brain proves that experience does not require the external world in the way we usually assume. It can create a convincing reality out of memory, emotion, and expectation. This does not mean waking life is just a dream. That would be a little too easy, and also quite inconvenient for anyone trying to pay rent. But it does show that consciousness is not a simple window. It is an active construction. The brain does not merely receive reality. It participates in making the reality we experience. Dreams reveal this by removing the usual anchors. Without the steady correction of the outside world, consciousness becomes free to drift. It tests old fears. It replays emotional puzzles. It rehearses future possibilities. It opens doors that waking life keeps shut. And now and then, it produces a dream that feels like a message placed carefully on the shore after the tide has gone out. So tonight, as we begin this journey into dreams and consciousness, we're not trying to reduce the mystery too quickly. We're not saying dreams are only brain noise, and we're not saying they are supernatural telegrams from beyond the stars. We're allowing something more delicate. Dreams may be meaningful without being literal. They may be biological without being empty. They may be personal without being fully understood. They may be echoes from hidden layers of the mind, returning in symbols because symbols are the native language of the sleeping self. And as your own thoughts begin to slow, you might notice how close dreaming always is. Even now, while listening, images may rise at the edges of awareness, a memory, a hallway, a colour, a face. The mind is never truly silent. Beneath the ordinary stream of thought, deeper currents continue moving. They gather what the day has scattered. They hold what the waking self has set aside. They wait for darkness, not because darkness is frightening, but because darkness gives subtle things room to appear. In that room, sleep opens a hidden door and the mind begins its quiet work. When sleep opens the hidden door, it does not do it with a creak, a warning or a dramatic clap of thunder. It does it softly. One moment you're lying there with your ordinary thoughts still moving around the room, thinking about the day, the message you forgot to answer, the cup you left on the table, the small problem that suddenly becomes enormous the moment your head touches the pillow. And then, almost without permission, the edges begin to blur. The body grows heavier, the world grows quieter, the ceiling loses importance, the clock becomes less convincing. Somewhere in the brain, the careful manager of waking life begins to step away from the desk, and another kind of mind begins to wake. This is one of the strangest reversals in human experience. We say that we fall asleep, as if sleep is a kind of disappearance. We say we lose consciousness, as if the mind simply switches off like a lamp. But anyone who has dreamed knows that sleep is not just absence. It is not blankness. It is not nothing. Sleep is an entrance. It is a change of rooms. The waking world closes its bright front door, and somewhere behind it, another door opens into a place built from memory, emotion, instinct, and hidden association. The body rests, but the mind does not become empty. It becomes different. During the day, consciousness behaves rather like a careful host at a crowded gathering. It decides who gets to speak, what matters, what must be ignored, and what should be politely pushed into the corner until later. It keeps you focused on useful things. It helps you read signs, follow conversations, notice traffic, remember appointments, and avoid pouring orange juice into your tea unless you're having a particularly experimental morning. Waking awareness is selective because it has to be. There is simply too much information around you and within you for the mind to hold all at once. Every second, your brain receives more signals than you consciously notice. Sounds in the distance, the pressure of fabric on skin, tiny shifts in someone's expression, the smell of a room, the rhythm of your own breathing. Memories stirred by a word, feelings that rise before you know why they're there. Most of this is filtered away, not because it is meaningless, but because waking life requires a narrow beam of attention. To function, the mind must simplify the world. It must say, this matters now, that can wait, this is danger, that is background. Please do not think about every embarrassing thing you ever did while trying to buy vegetables. But sleep changes the rules. As the body begins its nightly descent, the waking filter grows less strict. The bright beam of attention softens. The mind no longer has to keep up its full performance for the outside world. You're not answering questions, crossing streets, paying bills, or trying to look normal during a video call. The brain is freed from the immediate demands of the day, and when that happens, material that was pushed aside can begin to move. This does not happen all at once. Falling asleep is not like stepping through a doorway from one room into another. It is more like walking into fog. At first, thoughts remain ordinary. You may think, I should remember to do that tomorrow. Then the thought bends slightly. Tomorrow becomes a place. The place becomes a corridor. The corridor belongs to a school you have not visited in years. Someone is calling your name. You are not sure who. The logic of waking life has not vanished completely, but it has loosened. The mind begins to drift from deliberate thought into image, from planning into association, from the outer world into the inner one. Scientists call the early stage of sleep a transitional state, and it can be full of strange little moments. You may hear a sound that is not there. You may see a face, a flash of light, a pattern, a scene that appears and vanishes before you can hold it. You may feel the body drop, jerk, or float. Many people know that sudden falling sensation just as sleep begins, followed by a startled twitch, as if the body has decided at the last second that gravity needs urgent supervision. These moments are not full dreams in the usual sense, but they show how quickly the mind can begin generating experience when the waking world fades. This threshold is important because it reveals something about consciousness. Our sense of reality is not simply delivered to us by the outside world, it is constructed. The waking mind uses sensory information to build a stable model of the world, but when sensory input becomes quiet and the body grows still, the brain can begin building from inside. It uses fragments of memory, expectation, emotion, and imagination. At first, these fragments are brief and delicate: a voice, a staircase, a colour, a movement. Then, deeper in sleep, they can gather into entire worlds. The hidden door opens wider during dreaming sleep. The brain becomes active in ways that can look surprisingly close to waking activity, though with important differences. The parts involved in emotion and visual imagination may become highly engaged. The parts involved in strict reasoning, self-monitoring, and careful judgment may become less dominant. That is why dreams can feel vivid, emotional, and convincing, while also being completely unreasonable. You can be late for a train that is also a whale, and instead of questioning this, you simply worry about your ticket. This is not stupidity. It is a different form of consciousness. The dream mind does not operate by the same rules as the waking mind. It is less concerned with factual consistency and more concerned with emotional truth. It does not ask, could this happen in the outer world? It asks, what does this feel like? It is not always interested in whether the image is realistic. It is interested in whether the image carries the right charge. A locked door can hold anxiety. A dark ocean can hold grief. A childhood home can hold longing. A stranger can carry part of yourself you have not yet recognized. In waking life, we often explain ourselves after the fact. We make sensible stories about why we feel what we feel. We say we are tired, busy, annoyed, fine, especially fine, that small word that often means the mind has placed caution tape around a much larger construction site. But sleep is less polite. It can bring forward the feeling before the explanation. It can show the emotional pattern without the convenient daytime disguise. This may be why dreams sometimes feel uncomfortable, even when nothing obviously frightening happens. The dream is not always trying to scare you. It may simply be showing you a shape of feeling that waking life has avoided. Think of the mind as a house with many rooms. During the day, you live mostly in the front rooms. They are lit, organized, and presentable. This is where you speak to other people, make choices, and keep your identity arranged in a way that feels familiar. But behind those front rooms are storage rooms, old rooms, locked rooms, rooms you meant to clean but did not. Sleep does not destroy the house. It lets you wander where you usually do not go. And dreams may be what happens when the lights come on in rooms you forgot were there. Some of those rooms contain memory. Not just clear memory, like names and dates, and where you put your keys, which remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of domestic life. They contain emotional memory. The tone of an old conversation, the feeling of being small, the sense of being watched, praised, ignored, loved, embarrassed, safe or unsafe. These memories do not always appear as direct replays. Dreams rarely behave like simple recordings. Instead, memory becomes material. The mind takes pieces from different times and builds new scenes with them. A person from childhood may appear in a modern city. A room from your old home may connect to your current workplace. Your dream may combine last week's worry with a feeling from 10 years ago, then dress the whole thing as a journey through an airport with no gates. At first, this seems chaotic, but perhaps the chaos has a kind of hidden order. The sleeping brain may be sorting emotional meaning, not literal events. It may connect experiences that share the same feeling, even if they occurred years apart. A dream about being lost may not be about travel. It may be about uncertainty. A dream about missing a train may not be about transport. It may be about opportunity, timing, pressure, or fear of falling behind. A dream about a broken phone may not be about the phone at all. It may be about communication, distance, or the frustration of not being heard. This is where sleep becomes more than rest. It becomes processing. While the body withdraws from the outer world, the brain continues its quiet work. It strengthens some memories, weakens others, blends new experiences with old knowledge, and may help regulate emotion. The day leaves impressions behind, some are obvious, others are tiny. A glance, a sentence, a worry that passed so quickly you barely noticed it. During sleep, these impressions may be revisited and compared with older patterns. The mind asks without words, have I felt this before? Does this matter? Is this dangerous? Is this unresolved? Is this part of a larger story? The waking mind usually wants conclusions, it wants clean answers. It wants the label on the jar to say exactly what is inside, but the sleeping mind seems to work more through resemblance. This feeling is like that feeling. This person reminds me of that person. This situation has the same shape as an old fear. This hope carries the same warmth as an old desire. It is pattern work, but not the sort that always becomes speech. It is closer to the way music can remind you of a season, or a smell can suddenly return you to a place you had not thought about in years. The mind knows more through association than through language. Carl Jung believed that dreams opened a path into the unconscious, and whether we use his language or a more modern one, there is something compelling in that idea. The unconscious is not simply a basement full of suppressed secrets, though it may include things we do not wish to face. It is also the vast background of mental life. It is perception without spotlight, memory without narration, emotion before explanation. The deep storehouse of patterns that influence what we notice, what we fear, what we choose, and what we become. Sleep may open the hidden door because the waking self no longer stands guard so firmly, and yet the door does not open into pure truth. This is important. Dreams can reveal, but they can also distort. They can express fear as fact, desire as destiny, memory as prophecy, and anxiety as a very convincing disaster involving public speaking and missing trousers. The dream mind is not a courtroom witness. It is an artist, a dramatist, a symbolic builder. It may show something real, but not always in a literal form. To understand dreams gently, we must avoid both extremes. We should not dismiss them as meaningless rubbish, but we should not obey them as flawless messages either. They are signals, not instructions, echoes, not commands. The hidden door of sleep also opens onto the body. Dreams are not only mental stories. They are shaped by breathing, heartbeat, temperature, hormones, digestion, pain, and comfort. A noise in the room may become thunder in a dream. A blanket pressing against the body may become the feeling of being trapped. Thirst may become a dream of searching for water. A racing heart may become a chase. The dreaming mind does not always separate inner signals from outer scenes. It weaves everything together into experience. This makes dreams strangely intimate, because they reveal that consciousness is never just thought. It is embodied. It is physical. It is the brain listening to the body and turning signals into worlds. This may help explain why some dreams feel so intense. During certain kinds of dreaming, emotion can surge while rational control is reduced. The brain may present an old fear without the usual daytime tools for calming it, or it may offer a deep longing with unusual vividness. You may wake with tears, relief, unease, or wonder, not because the dream was logically impressive, but because it touched a real emotional circuit. It reached something that ordinary thinking often walks around. There is a tenderness in this, even when the dream is difficult. The sleeping mind may not always be kind, but it is rarely indifferent. It brings forward what has charge. It circles what remains unfinished. It revisits what was not fully felt. In that sense, dreams may be part of the mind's attempt to keep itself whole, not by explaining everything neatly, but by allowing hidden material to move, combine, and speak in its own strange way. This is also why repeated dreams matter to people. A recurring dream can feel like the mind knocking on the same inner door again and again. The details may change, but the emotional shape remains. A test you're not prepared for, a house with extra rooms, teeth falling out, being chased, trying to call someone and failing. Returning to school, arriving too late. These themes are common because the human mind shares certain anxieties. We fear exposure, loss, failure, helplessness, change, separation, and the unknown. The dream uses simple scenes to hold complex emotional patterns. It is not always subtle, but then again, neither are we when we are tired. The hidden door does not only lead to fear, it can also lead to creativity. Many artists, scientists, writers, and musicians have found ideas in dreams or in the soft borderland near sleep. This makes sense if sleep allows unusual associations to form. The waking mind follows familiar roads. The dreaming mind cuts across fields. It connects things that do not usually meet. Most of these connections are nonsense, of course. For every brilliant dream insight, there are many dreams where you invent a revolutionary sandwich and wake up realizing it was just bread inside bread. But sometimes, the loosened logic of sleep allows the mind to escape its usual habits. It sees a pattern differently. It solves a problem indirectly. It gives an image to something that could not yet be thought in words. This doorway between sleep and creativity suggests that consciousness is not a single mode. It is a spectrum. Waking focus is one mode. Daydreaming is another. Deep sleep, dreaming sleep, meditation, memory, imagination, and the drifting state before sleep all reveal different ways the mind can organize experience. We often treat waking rational awareness as the main event, and in daily life, it certainly feels that way. But sleep reminds us that the mind has other forms of intelligence, less direct, less controlled, but not empty. When we call dreams echoes from the deeper self, we are speaking carefully. The deeper self is not necessarily mystical. It may be the vast collection of processes that support conscious life without appearing in it directly. It is the memory network, the emotional system, the pattern detector, the body monitor, the old fear keeper, the quiet predictor, the storyteller beneath the storyteller. During the day, this deeper self works in the background. At night, it may step closer to the microphone. The quantum echo metaphor helps us imagine this without reducing it too much. In a complex system, information can disappear from view without being entirely lost. It can become hidden in patterns too tangled to follow directly. Under certain conditions, something returns. Not the original signal in a simple form, but a transformed trace. Dreams may be like that. The day enters the deep system of the mind. It mixes with memory, emotion, and bodily state. Then, in sleep, a pattern returns as experience. A dream is not a photograph of the unconscious. It is an echo shaped by the hidden landscape through which it has travelled. And perhaps this is why dreams can feel both deeply ours and strangely foreign. You made the dream, but not on purpose. It came from your brain, but not from your conscious planning. You recognize its materials, yet the arrangement surprises you. It is like receiving a letter in your own handwriting that you do not remember writing. The words may be strange, but the ink is familiar. As you listen now, perhaps already drifting a little, the idea of sleep as a door may feel less like a metaphor and more like a memory. You know this passage. You travel it every night. You leave behind the room, the clock, the ordinary name of things. You cross into a place where thought becomes image, where memory becomes landscape, where feeling becomes weather. Most mornings you return with only fragments, a face, a hallway, a sentence, a mood. The rest dissolves quickly, as if the waking mind cannot carry too much from the other side. But even when dreams are forgotten, the work of sleep may remain. You wake with a softened feeling, a changed perspective, a problem slightly less sharp, or sometimes a mystery that follows you through breakfast. Something moved in the night. Something was sorted, stirred, or brought near. The hidden door opened, and behind it the mind continued doing what it has always done, searching for pattern, seeking balance, listening for echoes beneath the surface. And once that door is open, the next question becomes even stranger. If dreams are echoes, What kind of hidden system are they echoing from? And what can physics teach us about patterns that vanish from sight, only to return in a form we can finally detect? To understand why the idea of an echo feels so useful for dreams, we have to leave the bedroom for a little while and step into a very different kind of darkness. Not the darkness behind closed eyelids, but the darkness inside complex systems, the places where information goes in clearly and then seems to vanish. A shout enters a canyon and comes back as a softened reply. A stone falls into water and the first splash disappears, but rings spread outward long after the stone is gone. A memory enters the mind during the day, and by night it may return as a house, a strangey, a locked door, or a road you somehow know you have travelled before. An echo is never just a repetition. That is the first important thing. If an echo were only a perfect copy, it would not tell us much. It would be like someone standing beside you and repeating your words in a slightly annoying voice, which is informative only about the patience of everyone in the room. A true echo is shaped by the space it passes through. It carries marks of distance, surface, depth, and hidden structure. The returning sound tells you not only that you called out, but also something about where your call went. The echo is information changed by the unseen place that held it for a moment. This is why echoes have always been useful in science. We send something out, then study what comes back. A bat sends sound into the night and learns the shape of a moth. A doctor uses ultrasound to send waves into the body and build an image from the returning signal. Radar sends pulses into the air and reads the distance of objects from the patterns that return. Sonar listens to the sea. Seismology listens to the earth. In each case, the hidden world does not reveal itself directly. It answers through echoes. The same basic idea appears in physics, though the details can become far stranger. In the quantum world, information can behave in ways that feel almost unreasonable from the viewpoint of ordinary life. A quantum system can spread information across many parts of itself. It can become scrambled so deeply that no simple observer can easily say where the original pattern went. To us, it can look lost. But under special conditions, a trace may return. Not as a simple object placed back on a shelf, but as a pattern recovered from a system that seemed to have swallowed it. We should be careful here, especially because the word quantum has a habit of wandering into places where it is asked to do far too much work. It is often treated like a magic seasoning sprinkled onto any mystery, as if adding quantum to a sentence automatically makes it deeper, more glamorous, and slightly better lit. That is not what we are doing. We're not claiming that a dream is literally a quantum experiment performed by your pillow. We're using the idea of a quantum echo as a metaphor for something that happens across many complex systems. Information can disappear from view without being fully destroyed. Patterns can become hidden. Under the right conditions, something can return. That simple idea, treated gently, fits dreams remarkably well. During waking life, the mind receives a constant stream of experience. Most of it seems ordinary. You pass a face in a shop. You notice the tone of someone's voice. You feel a small irritation and move on. You remember a childhood place for half a second because a smell in the air brought it back. You read a message and tell yourself it did not bother you. You see something that reminds you of someone you miss. You carry all of this forward, but not all of it enters clear awareness. The waking mind cannot keep everything at the front. It must filter, compress, and move along. Yet the fact that something is not conscious does not mean it has no effect. A small remark can stay in the body long after the conversation ends. A forgotten memory can shape the mood of a whole afternoon. A worry you refuse to name can alter how you sleep, how you speak, how you imagine tomorrow. The mind is full of information that has not vanished, only gone beneath the surface. It has entered the hidden system. Sleep may be one of the conditions under which patterns return. Not all at once, and not in a neat file labelled, "Here is what you are avoiding today." Dreams do not usually have the courtesy to include subtitles. Instead, the pattern returns transformed. A feeling becomes a place. A conflict becomes a chase. A desire becomes a journey. A memory becomes a room with impossible architecture. The original signal is not repeated exactly. It has travelled through the deeper layers of the mind, and the echo carries the marks of that journey. This is why the same dream image can feel so loaded. Imagine a door in a dream. It may be nothing more than a door, because sometimes a door is allowed to be unemployed by symbolism and simply stand there doing door work. But in many dreams, a door feels charged. It may be locked, hidden, half open, too small, too heavy, or leading into a place you're afraid to enter. The door is not a sentence. It is a returned pattern. It gathers feelings of choice, access, secrecy, fear, discovery, and hesitation into a single image. The dream does not explain the emotional system, it gives you the echo. A dream about water may work the same way. Calm water, flooding water, dark water. Water you cannot cross. Water rising in a room. Water carrying you away. The image is simple, but the feeling is not. It may gather anxiety, grief, memory, birth, danger, cleansing, or overwhelm, depending on the life of the dreamer. This is why dream dictionaries are often too simple. They pretend that one image has one fixed meaning for everyone. But an echo is shaped by the space it travels through. Your dream is shaped by your mind, your body, your history, your fears, your hopes, and your private associations. A snake in one dream may mean danger. In another, healing. In another, transformation. In another, simply that the person fell asleep after watching a nature documentary and the brain was being extremely literal. Patterns return, but they return through the individual. This is also why dreams can feel confusing when you try to translate them into ordinary language. The dream may make emotional sense before it makes logical sense. You wake with a heavy feeling. You remember only that you were searching for someone in a city where all the streets kept changing. If you describe it plainly, it sounds like nonsense, but the emotional pattern may be very clear. You're trying to reach something. You cannot find the route. The familiar world will not stay stable. The dream is not a report about urban planning. It is an echo of uncertainty, longing, or fear of losing connection. The waking mind often wants to ask, what does this dream mean? That is a reasonable question, but it may be too small. A better question might be, what pattern is returning here? What feeling came back in disguise? What unfinished process is this dream circling? What hidden connection did sleep allow the mind to make? In science, when an echo returns from a hidden system, researchers do not expect it to look exactly like the original signal. They study the change. They ask what the transformation reveals. The delay matters. The distortion matters. The strength of the return matters. Dreams may be approached in a similar spirit, not as commands, not as prophecies to obey, but as transformed returns from the depths of the mind. They are psychological echoes, shaped by the hidden terrain. This can be especially clear after emotionally intense days. Suppose someone says something that wounds you, but in the moment you laugh it off. You continue with your day. You tell yourself it was nothing. The conscious mind chooses efficiency. It has things to do, but the deeper mind records the tone, the pause, the old feeling it stirred. That night you may dream of being back in school, standing in front of a classroom without your notes. No one in the dream says the original sentence. No one from the real event appears, yet the emotional pattern has returned. Exposure, shame, vulnerability. The dream is not repeating the event, it is echoing its shape. Or imagine you are approaching a major decision. During the day, you make sensible lists. You compare options. You speak calmly. But beneath that calm, your mind has already collected tiny signals. Excitement when one possibility is mentioned. Tension when another is discussed. Memories of past choices. Fear of repeating an old mistake. Hope you do not want to confess too quickly, in case hope makes you look foolish in front of your own inner committee. Then, during sleep, you dream of standing at a station while two trains wait on opposite platforms. One is bright but crowded. The other is quiet but going somewhere unknown. You wake with a feeling that one direction matters more. Again, this does not mean the dream gives the correct answer. Dreams are not always wise. Sometimes they are dramatic little theatre productions staged by a brain that has had too much cheese, stress, or both. But they can reveal the emotional weight of a choice before waking thought has fully admitted it. They show not what must happen, but what is moving beneath awareness. This is one reason some dreams feel prophetic. The dream may be reading patterns already present. The unconscious mind is not magical, but it can be observant. It notices things before the conscious self forms a sentence around them. A friend has been quieter. A partner has been distant. A problem at work has been growing. A health worry has been present in the body as a subtle discomfort. A creative idea has been forming from pieces scattered across weeks. The dream may gather these clues into a symbolic scene. Later, when events unfold in the waking world, it feels as though the dream knew the future. Perhaps, in a modest sense, it did. Not by stepping outside time, but by recognizing the direction of a pattern before the waking mind caught up. The mind is always predicting. This is one of its most basic tasks. It predicts where the next footstep will land, what a sentence means before it ends, whether a face is friendly, whether a room is safe, whether a memory matters. Waking consciousness experiences the result as a world that feels stable and continuous. But underneath, the brain is constantly comparing expectation with input. It is always asking what comes next. During dreams with external input reduced, prediction may become untethered from immediate reality. The mind simulates possibilities. It creates scenes out of expectation, fear, memory, and desire. It rehearses, it tests, it plays. This is not unlike a hidden system producing returns from internal patterns. The dream world may be the mind's prediction machinery running in a freer mode, no longer constrained by the demands of the outer room. It can combine yesterday's glance, last year's grief, an old family pattern, a half-remembered film, and a bodily sensation into one seamless experience. It may be bizarre, but it's not necessarily random. It is the brain's model making power turned inward. This helps explain why dream worlds feel coherent while we are inside them. The dreaming brain is not building reality from nothing. It is using the same basic ability that helps waking consciousness make sense of the world. When you're awake, your brain creates a controlled model from sensory signals. When you dream, it creates an internally generated model from memory and emotion. In both cases, consciousness lives inside the model. That is why a dream can frighten you even though there is no actual monster in the room. The experience is real to the experiencing mind. The monster may be imaginary, but the fear is not. And this leads to a deeper thought about consciousness itself. Perhaps consciousness is not simply the presence of a world, but the presence of a pattern, organized strongly enough to be experienced from within. In waking life, the pattern is anchored by the senses. In dreams, it is anchored by memory and emotion. In both cases, there is a self moving through a scene, even if the self changes, melts, or forgets its own history. The dream reveals that the mind can generate a theatre, an actor, a mood, a plot, and a sense of reality without needing the outside world to supply every detail. That is unsettling, but also beautiful. Each night, the brain demonstrates that experience is something it actively builds. Quantum echoes invite us to think about hiddenness in a new way. Something may be present even when it cannot be directly seen. A pattern may be distributed, scrambled, or encoded across a system. The return may not resemble the original, yet it can still carry information. This is not only a useful idea in physics, it is useful for the mind. Much of who we are is distributed across memory, body, habit, expectation, language, and emotion. The waking self is only the small part that says, "I am thinking this right now." Beneath it lies a much larger system, full of patterns that are active even when we do not name them. Dreams may be one way those patterns become visible. not visible as a doctor's scan or a printed report, visible as experience. The mind shows itself to itself, but it does so indirectly. It creates a scene and invites the dreamer inside. It says, not with words, feel this shape, walk through it, notice the room, notice the person, notice the thing you're running from, notice what you cannot open, notice what keeps returning. There is a reason recurring dreams can be so stubborn. A recurring pattern in waking life may create a recurring pattern in sleep. The dream returns because the underlying system has not settled. Perhaps the mind is still trying to process a fear, a memory, or a conflict. Perhaps it is rehearsing a threat. Perhaps it is asking for attention in the only language available when ordinary awareness is quiet. The same image knocks again. The same road appears. The same unfinished task waits. The echo returns because the hidden structure keeps sending it back. But dreams can also change. People sometimes notice that a recurring dream shifts when their waking life changes. The locked door opens. The pursuer is faced. The impossible exam is no longer frightening. The flood recedes. These changes can feel deeply meaningful because they suggest that inner patterns are not fixed forever. The hidden system can reorganize. The echo can return differently. The mind can learn, even in sleep. This is where the idea becomes quietly hopeful. If dreams are echoes, then they are not just reminders of what is buried. They may be signs that buried things are moving. A painful memory that enters a dream may be undergoing processing. A fear that appears symbolically may be becoming available to awareness. A desire that shows up in a strange scene may be asking to be recognized. The dream is not merely a shadow cast by the past. It may be part of the mind's attempt to reshape the past into something that can be carried. Of course, not every dream should be studied too heavily. Some dreams are passing weather. Some are mental housekeeping. Some are the brain's way of blending leftover images with bodily signals and calling the result a plot, rather generously. If you dream that you're arguing with a penguin about bus schedules, it may not require a full psychological inquiry, though one must admit the penguin probably had strong opinions. The point is not to make dreams grander than they are. The point is to recognize that even ordinary dreams arise from a mind that is never truly simple. When people say a dream was just a dream, they usually mean it did not happen in the outer world, that is true. But inner events can still matter. A dream can reveal a feeling. It can soften grief. It can bring a memory close. It can frighten us into noticing a fear. It can offer an image that helps us understand something we could not explain. It can change the emotional tone of a morning. It can leave behind a question that follows us for years. Something does not have to be physically real to be psychologically real. This is where the hidden door of sleep and the echo metaphor meet. Sleep creates the condition. The waking filter softens, the outer world quiets, the body becomes still. The deeper mind begins to move through its networks of memory, emotion, and prediction. Patterns that were hidden become active. Some return as dreams, not clear copies, but echoes shaped by the mind's inner landscape. And when we wake, we often hold only a fragment. Dreams dissolve quickly, because waking consciousness is a different state with different priorities. The alarm rings, light enters the room. The day returns with its lists and surfaces. The dream that felt enormous at 4 a.m. becomes a few odd images by breakfast. A staircase, a river, a voice, a blue room. It's as if we have brought back seashells from a deep ocean and are trying to reconstruct the entire seabed from what fits in our hands. Still, sometimes a fragment is enough. A single dream image can act like the echo from a hidden chamber. It does not show the whole structure, but it suggests that there is depth there. It tells us the mind has inner spaces, and that those spaces respond. They hold what enters them. They transform it. They return it in patterns. So when we speak of quantum echoes and the patterns that return, we are really speaking about a broader mystery shared by physics, psychology, and consciousness. How does the hidden become known? How does information survive when it seems lost? How does a system reveal its unseen structure through the traces that come back? And how, in the quiet hours of sleep, does the mind take what we have lived, bury it beneath ordinary awareness, and return it to us as a dream? The next step is to look more closely at the scientific idea that inspired this metaphor, a real experiment in which researchers use the strange rules of quantum systems to make an echo return from a place where information seemed to disappear, and from there, the comparison with dreaming becomes even more curious. Google's quantum echo begins with a very simple feeling, even though the science behind it is anything but simple. It begins with the question of how something hidden can become visible again. Not visible in the ordinary sense, like a candle in a dark room, or a misplaced pair of glasses sitting exactly where you already checked 3 times. Visible as a pattern, visible as a return, visible as a faint but meaningful response from a system that seemed, for a moment, to have swallowed the original signal whole. Imagine a still pond at night. You drop a small pebble into the water, and the first splash is obvious. Anyone could see it. But then the pond begins to move in more complicated ways. Ripples meet other ripples, they bounce from the banks, they overlap, weaken, strengthen, and spread. If you looked only at the surface a little later, you might not be able to say exactly where the pebble fell. The original event has not remained in a neat little circle. It has been distributed across the whole surface. But if you understood the water well enough, if you could read every ripple with impossible patience, you might still recover something about what happened. The pond has changed. The information is hidden in the pattern. Quantum systems are like that, only far stranger, much smaller, and much less interested in behaving politely for human intuition. In the quantum world, information can spread through a system in a way physicists call scrambling. A small disturbance does not simply stay where it began. It becomes shared across many parts of the system. It becomes tangled into the whole. To an ordinary observer, the original information may seem lost, as if it dissolved into the complexity. But quantum physics has a curious habit of making the word lost more complicated than it first appears. Google's quantum echoes research used this idea in a carefully controlled way. Their quantum processor, called Willow, was used to run a specially designed sequence. First, the system was pushed forward through a complicated evolution, a kind of journey into quantum chaos. Then one small part was disturbed. After that, the system was driven backward, as if the researchers were asking the quantum machine to retrace its steps through a maze that no classical computer could easily map. At the end, they measured the returning signal, the echo. The important point is not that the system literally travelled backward in time like a sleepy science fiction character looking for their lost keys. It did not. Rather, the operation was reversed in a controlled mathematical and physical sense, allowing scientists to see how the small disturbance had spread. That returning echo mattered because it made the invisible pattern measurable. The disturbance had gone into the complexity. It had become hidden. But when the system was reversed and measured, the echo carried information about how that disturbance moved through the quantum system. In other words, the echo was not just a sound coming back from a wall, it was a way of revealing the structure of hidden change. This is why the idea feels so powerful when we bring it back toward dreams. Again, we should place a soft guardrail around the thought. A sleeping brain is not the same thing as Google's Willow chip. Your dream about standing in a garden with someone you once knew is not secretly a laboratory measurement of a qubit, and your unconscious is not running a corporate research program, although at times it does seem to hold meetings without inviting you. The connection here is metaphorical, but it is a strong metaphor because both ideas involve hidden patterns returning from a complex system. In Google's experiment, a carefully prepared quantum state enters complexity, becomes scrambled, and later produces a measurable echo. In the dreaming mind, an experience from waking life enters the deep system of memory, feeling, body, and unconscious association. It becomes mixed with old material. It spreads through networks you cannot consciously inspect. Then, during sleep, something returns. Not as the original moment, but as a dream image, not as a direct explanation, but as a symbolic echo. You may have a brief conversation during the day that seems unimportant. Someone pauses before answering you. Their tone is different. A small tension moves through your body, but you ignore it because there are errands, messages, meals, and all the ordinary machinery of the day demanding attention. The waking mind says, "Carry on." The deeper mind does not necessarily agree. It stores the pause, the tone, the bodily feeling, the memory it stirred. That night, the pattern may return as a dream in which you are walking through a familiar house, but the doors keep closing just before you reach them. No one in the dream repeats the conversation. No one explains the pause, but the emotional disturbance is spread through the mind and returned as an echo. Distance, uncertainty, something withheld. This is the kind of invisible made visible that dreams can offer. Not visible in the way a photograph is visible. Visible in the way a shadow reveals the shape of something behind you. Visible in the way a ripple tells you something touched the water. Dreams may not show the source directly, but they may reveal how the source moved through the deeper system of the self. The quantum echo also helps us think about why dreams can be so strange. When information passes through a complex system, it does not come back clean and simple. It is transformed. If you shout into a cathedral, the echo returns softened and stretched by stone, height, distance, and air. If a waking event enters the sleeping mind, it returns shaped by memory, emotion, childhood, fear, desire, bodily state, and imagination. A worry about work might return as a dream of missing a train. Grief might return as a flooded room. A buried hope might return as a road opening through a forest. The dream is not nonsense simply because it is indirect. It may be indirect because the system it returns from is deep. In the quantum experiment, scientists use precise controls to create the echo. They know what they sent in. They know how the system was moved forward. They know where the small disturbance was placed. They know how to reverse the operations and what to measure. Dreams are not so tidy. We cannot run the same dream twice under perfectly controlled conditions, perturb one symbol, reverse the unconscious, and ask the mind to print the results before breakfast. The brain is a living system, not a laboratory device built for clean repetition. It is full of history. It is shaped by hormones, sleep stages, memories, stress, body signals, and the quiet rumble of dinner, which occasionally contributes more to dream symbolism than philosophers would prefer. Still, the comparison gives us a way to speak about hidden processing. During the day, consciousness often sees only the surface result. I feel uneasy. I miss someone. I do not know why that conversation stayed with me. I keep thinking about a place from long ago. These are surface ripples. The deeper movement may be distributed across many systems. Memory, emotion, prediction, sensation, and old association may all be involved. Sleep may allow those distributed patterns to gather into scenes. The dream becomes an echo from the wider hidden system. What makes Google's quantum echo especially interesting is that it was not only about seeing something small, it was about seeing how a small change spreads. That is an important difference. In dreams, too, the most meaningful question is not always, what does this image mean by itself? It may be, how has this feeling spread through me? Where else does it appear? What memories does it touch? What future does it seem to anticipate? What older pattern has it awakened? Suppose a person dreams again and again of being late. The obvious interpretation might be simple anxiety, but the echo may reveal something more distributed. Perhaps the person feels behind in life. Perhaps they fear missing a chance. Perhaps there is an old memory of disappointing someone. Perhaps the body is carrying stress. Perhaps the dream joins all these into one repeating pattern, an echo that returns because the hidden system remains disturbed. The dream image is simple. The network behind it is not. This is why dreams can feel so emotionally exact, even when they are factually absurd. You might dream of an impossible city where every street leads back to the same square. When you wake, the map makes no sense, but the feeling may be perfectly accurate. You are stuck. You are circling. You're trying to move forward but returning to the same inner place. The dream has made visible a pattern you could not easily state while awake. It has given shape to the invisible. The phrase invisible made visible also belongs to the history of science itself. Much of science is the art of detecting what cannot be seen directly. We do not see gravity itself. We see falling objects, orbiting planets, bending light. We do not see an atom with ordinary eyes. We infer it through instruments, traces, reactions, and patterns. We do not see the inside of the Earth directly. We listen to waves moving through it. Science often works by asking nature to echo back, send a signal, watch the return, study the distortion, build the hidden picture. The mind may be approached with similar humility. We cannot see the unconscious directly. We cannot open a drawer in the brain and find a neatly folded fear labelled from childhood, though that would make therapy rather more efficient and furniture shopping more psychologically dramatic. Instead, the unconscious is inferred through patterns, slips of speech, repeated choices, sudden emotions, body reactions, creative images, dreams. These are not perfect instruments, but they are returns from hidden processes. Jung understood this in his own language. He believed dreams revealed the movement of the unconscious through symbols. To him, the dream did not merely disguise meaning. It expressed meaning in the only form available to the deeper psyche. Modern neuroscience may use different language, speaking of memory consolidation, emotional regulation, simulation, and predictive processing, but it still leaves room for the idea that dreams are not meaningless leftovers. They are generated by systems that are processing something. They are returns from hidden work. The quantum echo metaphor gives that hidden work a modern scientific shape. It lets us imagine the mind as a system where information is not always lost when it drops out of awareness. It may be scrambled into deeper networks. It may become part of a larger pattern. Later, under the altered conditions of sleep, it may return as an image strong enough to be felt. The dream is the echo, and the echo tells us that something moved. There is also a delicate lesson here about disturbance. In Google's experiment, the small perturbation is important because it reveals how sensitive the system is. A tiny change can spread widely. In the human mind, small experiences can also spread. A sentence said carelessly, a look from someone loved, a sound linked to an old memory, a smell that returns you to childhood, a news story that touches a hidden fear, a choice not yet made. These may seem small at the surface, but the mind is not a flat surface. It is layered, connected, alive. A small disturbance can travel far inside it. This is one reason dreams can surprise us with the emotional power of ordinary events. You may think nothing happened today, and yet the night produces a dream full of urgency. Perhaps something did happen, but it happened below the threshold of conscious naming. The deeper system was perturbed. The echo came back louder than expected. Not all echoes are easy to interpret. In quantum science, measuring the echo requires careful mathematics, repeated trials, and highly controlled conditions. In dreams, interpretation is far messier. The same symbol can mean different things to different people. A staircase may feel like progress to one dreamer, danger to another, memory to another, and a reminder to fix the actual staircase to someone whose house is becoming a practical hazard. The meaning lives in the relationship between image and dreamer. The echo must be heard in its own chamber. That is why it is useful to ask gentle questions rather than force conclusions. What feeling did the dream leave behind? Where in waking life does that feeling appear? What was familiar? What was new? What repeated? What changed? What did the dream make visible that the day kept hidden? These questions do not treat the dream as a code to crack. They treat it as an echo to listen to. The quantum echo also reminds us that the return can be amplified. In Google's description, the echo becomes useful because quantum interference can strengthen the signal under the right conditions. In the dreaming mind, emotion may act almost like an amplifier. A minor image becomes unforgettable because it carries strong feeling. Most dreams fade because their echoes are weak, or because waking life quickly covers them with noise. But some dreams return with force. They wake us. They remain. They feel heavier than ordinary imagination. Perhaps these are dreams where the underlying pattern has been amplified by fear, love, grief, desire, or unresolved conflict. This is why a dream of someone who has died can feel more real than a normal memory. It is not only an image of the person. It is the whole emotional system of loss, longing, love, unfinished speech, and memory returning at once. The dream may be brief, but the echo is deep. The mind makes visible the continuing presence of an attachment that waking life cannot simply close. In this way, dreams may help the psyche remain in contact with what matters, even when ordinary life demands forward motion. The idea also touches the mystery of consciousness. In the quantum echo experiment, the system is measured from the outside. Scientists observe the result. But in dreams, the echo is not just measured, it is lived. Consciousness appears inside the returning pattern. You do not merely see the flooded room, you stand in it. You do not merely observe the locked door, you try to open it. The dream is a hidden signal that becomes a world, and the dreamer becomes a participant in that world. This is astonishing when you pause over it. The mind does not simply display its echoes on a screen. It creates an experience around them. It turns emotional information into space, movement, characters, weather, and story. It makes the invisible visible by making it inhabitable. You walk through your own hidden patterns as if they were places. Perhaps that is why dreams can change us. A thought can be ignored, a feeling can be postponed. But a dream can surround you. It can make you feel the pattern from the inside. You may wake and not fully understand it, yet something has been touched. The invisible has become visible enough to leave a trace, and this trace may influence waking life. You may treat someone differently after a dream. You may recognize a fear. You may finally admit a longing. You may make a decision that seemed impossible before, not because the dream commanded you, but because it revealed the emotional structure beneath the choice. It gave you an echo from the hidden system, and once heard, that echo becomes part of consciousness. This is where Google's quantum echo and the dreaming mind meet most quietly. Both point toward a profound idea. Reality is not limited to what appears clearly at first glance. Some patterns are hidden by complexity. Some information is spread too widely to see directly. Some disturbances move through systems beneath the surface. But under certain conditions, something returns. A measurable signal in a quantum chip, a symbolic image in a dream, a small echo that says, there is structure here, there is depth here. What seemed invisible was never entirely gone. For the sleeping mind, this means that dreams may be more than nighttime entertainment from a brain with unusual lighting choices. They may be one of the ways consciousness encounters its own hidden layers. They may reveal the shape of feelings before language does. They may show how small events have spread through memory. They may turn buried conflicts into landscapes, suppressed emotions into weather, and quiet predictions into scenes that feel almost prophetic. The deeper we look, the more dreams seem to belong to both science and mystery. Not mystery as a refusal to understand, but mystery as an invitation to look more carefully. The quantum echo gives us a modern image of hidden information returning. Jung gives us an older image of the unconscious speaking in symbols. Neuroscience gives us the living brain active in sleep, weaving memory and emotion into experience. Between them, a strange possibility begins to take shape. Perhaps the dream is not a random interruption of consciousness, but one of consciousness's most intimate tools, a way for the mind to make the unseen self visible. and once we have understood that an echo can return from what seems hidden, we are ready to move from the quantum machine back into the human psyche, where Carl Jung imagined an even deeper chamber beneath ordinary awareness, a place of symbols, shadows, forgotten emotions, and patterns older than the waking self can easily explain. Carl Jung entered the mystery of dreams with a very different kind of lantern. He was not looking at sleep only as a biological function, or dreams only as scraps left over from the day. He was looking for the deeper architecture of the human mind. To Jung, the dream was not a meaningless flicker on the dark wall of sleep. It was a message from beneath the ordinary self, though not always a polite message, and certainly not one written in the tidy language of a morning schedule. It was more like a letter sent from a country we have lived in all our lives but somehow never fully visited. Jung believed that each of us carries a vast inner world below the level of conscious awareness. We notice the surface of ourselves. We know the thoughts we can name, the feelings we admit, the choices we explain, and the version of ourselves we present to other people while trying not to spill tea on anything important. But beneath that surface, he believed, there is another region. A region made of forgotten experiences, hidden desires, old fears, instincts, symbols, memories and patterns that continue shaping us even when we do not consciously recognize them. This was the unconscious. The unconscious, in Jung's view, was not simply a rubbish bin for unwanted thoughts. It was not just a dark cellar where the mind throws embarrassing memories and locks the door. It was alive with activity. It compensated for what the conscious mind ignored. It held material that had not yet been understood. It contained parts of the personality that had been pushed away, neglected, or never fully developed. It could be troubling, yes, but also wise, creative, and deeply meaningful. It was not merely below the self. It was part of the self, perhaps even the larger part. This idea can feel strange at first because most of us identify ourselves with the voice in our head. The voice that says, I like this, I dislike that, I must remember to send that message, I should definitely start sleeping earlier, and then somehow does not. We think of that conscious voice as the whole of who we are. But even in ordinary life, it is clear that more is happening beneath it. You can enter a room and instantly feel uneasy before you know why. You can meet someone and sense warmth or danger before you have formed a clear judgment. You can react strongly to a sentence because it touches an old wound you thought was long gone. You can make a choice and only later understand the reason. The conscious self often arrives after the deeper mind has already moved. Jung was fascinated by this hidden movement. He noticed that people's dreams often seem to reveal things their waking selves did not want to face. A person who thought of themselves as calm might dream of storms. A person who believed they had left grief behind might dream of a house full of locked rooms. Someone who lived entirely through duty might dream of wild animals, open roads, or figures calling them away from the safe path. Jung did not treat these images as random decoration. He thought the dream was trying to balance the conscious attitude by bringing forward what had been ignored. This is one of Jung's most useful ideas for our journey. The dream may act as compensation. If the waking mind becomes too narrow, too rigid, too certain, the unconscious may produce a dream that widens the picture. If you're pretending not to be angry, a dream may show fire. If you're refusing vulnerability, a dream may place you in a fragile room. If you're too attached to control, the dream may send you into a world where maps change, clocks melt away, and elevators behave like they were designed by someone with a personal grudge against calmness. The dream does not always flatter the conscious self. Sometimes it corrects it. This does not mean the unconscious is always right. Jung did not think dreams should be followed blindly, like mysterious instructions from a sleep oracle with excellent dramatic timing. Dreams can exaggerate, they can confuse, they can dramatize fear, they can turn a small concern into a full theatrical production involving floods, missing shoes, and someone from primary school who has no business being there. But for Jung, The dream deserved attention because it revealed the mind's own attempt to restore balance. It showed where psychic energy was moving. It showed what the waking personality had failed to include. To understand this, Jung used the idea of the shadow. The shadow is one of his most famous concepts, and one of the most important for dreams. It refers to the parts of ourselves we do not want to identify with, the qualities we reject, deny, fear, or hide. Some of these may be genuinely destructive, like cruelty, envy, or resentment, but some may simply be undeveloped. Confidence in a person taught to be small, tenderness in a person who learned to stay hard, creativity in a person who became too practical, anger in a person who was never allowed to protest. The shadow is not only the bad self, it is the hidden self. Dreams often bring the shadow into view through figures that feel disturbing, strange, or unwanted. A dark stranger, a pursuer, a rival, a frightening animal. A person behaving in a way the dreamer would never admit in waking life. These figures can be alarming, but Jung believed they may represent disowned parts of the personality. The dream may not be saying, "This frightening figure is outside you." It may be saying, "Something in you has been left outside the circle of awareness." That is not always an easy thing to hear, especially at breakfast. No one wants to wake up and think, perhaps the monster in my dream is an underdeveloped part of my own psyche. Most of us would prefer to blame the mattress and move on. But Jung's point was not to shame the dreamer, it was to invite wholeness. A person becomes more complete not by pretending to be pure, simple, and perfectly reasonable, but by recognizing the hidden forces within them. The shadow loses some of its power when it is acknowledged. What remains unconscious often controls us more strongly than what we can face. This is where the connection with echoes becomes clear again. The shadow may be like information that has been pushed out of direct awareness but not destroyed. It remains active beneath the surface. It shapes reactions, choices, fears, attractions, and conflicts. Then, in dreams, it returns. Not as a clean statement, but as an image, a person, a beast, a room, a chase. The dream is an echo from a hidden part of the self. The return may be unsettling because the hidden material has not yet been integrated. It comes back wearing a mask because the conscious mind does not yet recognize it as its own. Jung was also interested in what he called the persona. The persona is the social mask, the version of ourselves we develop to meet the world. It is not necessarily false. We all need a persona. You do not speak to a bank manager, a child, a friend, and a confused delivery driver in exactly the same way. At least, hopefully not. The persona helps us function. It lets us participate in society. It gives shape to our public identity. But a problem begins when we mistake the persona for the whole self. We may become too attached to being agreeable, intelligent, responsible, strong, successful, spiritual, funny, calm, or whatever role has helped us survive and belong. The more tightly we cling to the mask, the more the rejected parts of us slip into shadow. Jung believed dreams often reveal this tension. A person who always appears strong may dream of weakness. A person who always performs happiness may dream of emptiness. A person who builds their life around control may dream of collapse. The unconscious speaks against the mask, not to destroy it, but to remind the person that they are larger than the role they play. This is why dreams can feel so private. They are not made for the audience of daily life. They are not polished for social approval. They do not care whether the image is flattering. They care about psychic truth, or at least about emotional truth. A dream may show you small when you pretend to be large, angry when you pretend to be calm, lonely when you pretend to be fine, or powerful when you have convinced yourself you are helpless. The unconscious does not always observe the dress code. Beyond the personal unconscious, Jung proposed something even more daring. He believed there was also a collective unconscious. This was not a collection of personal memories, but a deeper layer of the psyche shared by humanity. It contained universal patterns that he called archetypes. These archetypes were not specific images, but deep forms that appear through images. The mother, The wise old figure, the hero, the trickster, the child, the shadow, the great journey, the death and rebirth pattern, the descent into darkness, the return with knowledge. Jung noticed that similar themes appeared in myths, religions, stories, and dreams across cultures. People who had never met and had no obvious connection could dream in symbols that resembled ancient myths. To Jung, this suggested that the human psyche carries inherited structures of meaning, shaped by the long history of human experience. Whether modern science would explain this in Jung's exact terms is another matter, but the observation remains powerful. Human beings do seem to dream in shared patterns. We dream of falling, flying, being chased, losing teeth, wandering through houses, meeting guides, facing monsters, searching for home, crossing water, entering caves, climbing mountains, and returning to old places. The details are personal, but the shapes are ancient. The house is one of the most common and revealing dream images. Jung often saw the house as an image of the psyche itself. The upper rooms might suggest conscious life. The lower rooms might suggest deeper layers. A basement may hold older material. A hidden room may suggest an unknown part of the self. A house that expands beyond expectation may reveal that the dreamer is larger within than they thought. Many people have dreamed of discovering extra rooms in a familiar home. There is a quiet wonder in those dreams. You thought you knew the place where you lived, and then a door opened to an undiscovered wing. In Jungian language, this may be an image of inner expansion. The self contains more than the waking ego knew. This is a gentle but profound thought. You may not be only the person you think you are. You may be a structure with hidden rooms. Some rooms contain sorrow, some contain fear, some contain gifts, some contain memories that still breathe quietly in the dark. Some contain possibilities that waking life has not yet allowed. A dream may open a door not to frighten you, but to show you that the inner house is wider than the hallway you usually walk. Jung also believed that dreams could guide a process he called individuation. This means the gradual movement towards psychological wholeness, not perfection, not happiness all the time, not becoming a serene person who never gets irritated by slow internet. Wholeness means becoming more fully oneself by bringing unconscious material into relationship with conscious life. It means meeting the shadow, loosening the persona, listening to symbols, recognizing inner conflicts, and allowing neglected parts of the self to develop. Dreams, for Jung, were one of the main ways this process revealed itself. In a dream, the psyche might stage an encounter between the ego and something larger. The dreamer may meet a guide, a threatening figure, a child, a strange animal, a dead relative, or a mysterious landscape. These figures may not be just characters. They may represent forces in the psyche. The dream becomes a theatre of inner relationship. The waking self meets what it has forgotten, feared, desired, or not yet understood. This is especially interesting when we think about consciousness. In waking life, the ego feels like the centre. It says, I am the one experiencing this. I am the one choosing. I am the one who knows. Jung challenged that. He believed the ego is only the centre of consciousness, not the centre of the whole psyche. The deeper self is much larger. It includes unconscious processes that the ego cannot control. In dreams, the ego is often humbled. It gets lost, surprised, chased, taught, tricked, or transformed. This may be the psyche showing the ego that it is not the ruler of the entire kingdom, more like a well-meaning local administrator who occasionally misplaces the paperwork. This can be unsettling, but also freeing. If the ego is not the whole self, then we do not have to understand everything consciously in order for growth to happen. The deeper mind is also working. It remembers, it compares, it creates, it sends images. It may know that something is wrong before the ego admits it. It may know that something is possible before the ego believes it. Dreams may be the place where this deeper movement becomes visible. Jung's view also helps us understand why dreams speak in symbols rather than direct statements. The unconscious may not use language because it is not built like waking thought. Much of it is older than language. It works through image, emotion, bodily feeling, association and pattern. A symbol can hold many meanings at once. A word often narrows, a symbol opens. Water can be danger, cleansing, depth, birth, grief, life, the unknown. A bridge can be transition, risk, connection, passage, separation. A child can be vulnerability, new life, the future, forgotten innocence, or a part of the self still growing. Dreams use symbols because symbols can carry complexity without flattening it. This is why trying to reduce a dream too quickly can harm its meaning. If someone dreams of a forest and we immediately say the forest means confusion, we may have closed the door too soon. For that dreamer, the forest might mean refuge, or danger, or childhood, or the sacred, or the place where paths disappear and instinct must lead. The symbol must be approached slowly. It must be listened to in the context of the dreamer's life. Jung often asked people to amplify a dream image, to explore its associations, myths, feelings, and personal connections. The symbol was not a code with one answer, it was a living centre of meaning. This brings us back to the quantum echo metaphor in a quiet way. An echo from a complex system cannot be understood by pretending the system is simple. The returning pattern carries traces of the hidden structure. To understand it, we must ask what shaped it. Dreams are like that. A dream symbol is a return from the unconscious, but the unconscious is layered. Personal memory, cultural meaning, bodily state, archetypal pattern, emotion, and present life may all shape the image. The same dream may have more than one level. It may speak of yesterday's worry and an old childhood pattern at the same time. It may show a personal fear through an ancient image. It may be both small and large. Jung's ideas are not accepted by everyone in modern psychology, and that is worth saying with calm honesty. Some of his concepts are difficult to test scientifically. The collective unconscious, archetypes, and symbolic interpretation are not the kind of things that fit easily into a laboratory with clipboards and tidy categories. Modern neuroscience often speaks about dreams in terms of memory processing, emotional regulation, threat simulation, and brain activity during sleep. These approaches are valuable and grounded in measurement. But Jung's work remains influential because it takes the lived meaning of dreams seriously. It honours the fact that a dream is not only a neural event, it is an experience, and experiences matter because we live through them from the inside. A purely biological account may explain how dreams occur, but it may not fully explain why a dream of a dead parent can change the feeling of grief, or why a repeated dream of a locked door can haunt a person for years, or why a dream image can inspire a decision, a painting, a confession, or a new understanding of the self. Jung helps preserve that inner dimension. He reminds us that dreams are not only things the brain does, they are things the person undergoes. There is a danger, of course, in overinterpreting everything. A dream about a sandwich may sometimes be a dream about a sandwich, especially if one went to bed hungry. Jung himself knew that symbols must be handled carefully. A dream should not be forced into a theory. It should be approached like a creature in the woods, quietly, respectfully, without sudden movements or the belief that you already know what it is. The dreamer's own feeling is essential. The meaning cannot be separated from the life that dreamed it. This attitude is useful for anyone reflecting on dreams. Instead of asking, "What does the book say this means?" one might ask, "What does this image feel like to me? Where have I felt this before? What part of me appears in this figure? What is missing from my waking life that appears in the dream? What does the dream exaggerate? What does it compensate for? What door does it open? What room does it ask me to enter?" The deep unconscious beneath the self is not always easy to meet. It may hold pain, shame, fear, longing, and conflict. but it may also hold creativity, intuition, strength, and renewal. Jung believed that by listening to dreams, a person could begin to form a relationship with this deeper mind. Not to control it completely, because the unconscious cannot be ordered around like a household appliance, and many household appliances resist as well, but to listen, to notice, to enter a dialogue. A dream, then, becomes part of a conversation between the conscious and unconscious self. The waking ego says, "This is who I think I am." The unconscious replies, "Here is what you have forgotten." The ego says, "This is what I want." The unconscious replies, "Here is what you fear." The ego says, "I am fine." The unconscious replies by producing a dream in which the house is flooding, the roof is missing, and a mysterious woman is handing you a key. Subtlety is not always the unconscious mind's favourite instrument. And yet there is kindness in the exchange. The deeper self does not only disrupt, it seeks connection. It brings hidden material into symbolic form so consciousness can begin to relate to it. A fear that remains completely unconscious may control behaviour from the dark. A fear that appears in a dream may be approached. A grief that remains unnamed may harden. A grief that appears as an image may be felt. A neglected part of the personality may act out from the shadow. A neglected part that appears in a dream may be invited into life. This is why Jung's work continues to resonate in any discussion of dreams and consciousness. He offers a vision of the mind as layered, symbolic, self-correcting, and larger than waking awareness. He suggests that dreams may be echoes from the deeper psyche, not random noise, but not simple messages either. They are symbolic returns from the hidden system of the self. They carry the marks of forgotten rooms, shadowed figures, ancient patterns, and emotional truths still seeking form. As night deepens and the ordinary self begins to loosen, Jung's inner landscape feels close. The persona grows quiet, the shadow stirs, the house of the mind expands beyond its familiar walls. Beneath the waking voice, older patterns begin to move. They do not speak in the clear language of daylight. They speak as water, doors, animals, strangers, roads, forests, children, storms, and rooms. They speak in symbols because symbols can hold what direct words cannot. And this leads naturally to the next mystery. If dreams are messages from the deeper mind, why do they almost never say what they mean plainly? Why does the unconscious not simply announce, "You are afraid, you are grieving, you are changing, you are ready"? Why does it choose images instead of explanations, symbols instead of sentences, and strange little stories instead of simple truth? Dreams speak in symbols because the deepest parts of the mind do not seem to think in tidy sentences. They do not sit quietly at a desk with a notebook, writing, "Today you felt abandoned because a small moment reminded you of an old wound." They do not prepare a calm presentation with numbered points, a sensible conclusion, and perhaps a polite reminder to drink more water. The sleeping mind has a very different style. It takes a feeling and turns it into a room. It takes a fear and turns it into a dark road. It takes a memory and turns it into a person standing at the edge of a field, saying nothing, but somehow saying everything. This can make dreams frustrating when we wake. We want them to explain themselves. We want the strange images to line up in ordinary language. Why was I walking through my childhood school, even though it was also a hospital? And why was my old friend there holding a bird cage? The waking mind wants facts. It wants a clean answer, preferably before coffee. But dreams are not built like waking explanations. They are built more like experiences. They do not simply tell us what is happening inside. They let us feel it. That may be the first reason dreams speak in symbols. A symbol can hold more than a sentence. A sentence usually moves in one direction. It says this means that. A symbol can open in several directions at once. A locked door can hold fear, secrecy, possibility, refusal, curiosity, and protection all together. A river can hold movement, danger, cleansing, grief, time and change. A house can be a memory, a body, a family, a self, a life, or a place you have never physically entered but somehow know. Symbols are useful because the inner life is rarely simple. Our feelings are layered. They do not always arrive one at a time, wearing name tags and waiting politely in a queue. When you are awake, language gives shape to thought. It lets you say, I am worried about tomorrow. I miss someone. I feel trapped. I am not ready. I want something to change. But the mind did not begin with language. Long before we learned to speak, the brain was sensing, feeling, imagining, fearing, desiring, remembering, and predicting. A baby knows comfort before it knows the word comfort. The body knows danger before the mind can explain danger. A smell can bring back a memory before you can name the place. A song can change your mood before you know why. Much of human experience begins below language. Dreams seem to arise from that old territory. They use image, emotion, movement, and sensation, because those are the materials of the deeper mind. They are closer to the way memory and feeling are stored in the body. A dream does not need to say you feel exposed. It can place you on a stage without your script. It does not need to say you are overwhelmed. It can fill a room with rising water. It does not need to say you're searching for direction. It can send you through a city where every street changes when you turn around. The dream speaks in the language of felt meaning. This is why a dream can be understood emotionally even when it makes no logical sense. You may wake and remember only a few impossible details, but the feeling remains clear. You were trying to reach someone. You were being watched. You were late. You were lost. You were home, but not home. The details may be strange, but the emotional pattern is recognizable. It is like hearing a song in a language you do not speak, and still knowing whether it is joyful, mournful, tender, or full of warning. The dream's grammar is feeling. During waking life, the conscious mind often edits experience quickly. It translates feeling into practical language. It says, I am busy, I am tired, I am annoyed, I am fine. Especially fine. That famously suspicious little word that often means a whole committee of emotions has been asked to sit quietly in another room. But those emotions do not always disappear. They continue beneath awareness. They attach themselves to memories, expectations, and bodily sensations. At night, when the waking editor relaxes, the unspoken material may return. But it returns in the form it knows best. It returns as symbol. Carl Jung believed this symbolic language was not accidental. To him, the unconscious did not hide meaning because it wanted to be difficult. It expressed meaning through symbols because some truths are too complex, too emotional, or too deep for direct speech. If the unconscious could simply say, you're afraid of becoming like your father, or you have hidden your anger for too long, or you're ready to leave an old identity behind, perhaps it would. But the unconscious is not a newspaper. It is a living process. It brings forward images that carry a whole field of meaning at once. A dream image can do what ordinary language often cannot. It can show conflict without choosing one side. It can hold past and present together. It can bring a childhood feeling into an adult situation. It can show a person as both loved and feared, a place as both safe and threatening, a road as both escape and danger. Waking language tends to separate. Dream symbols combine. They make one image carry several truths, which is why dreams can feel dense, heavy, and strangely alive. Think of a dream about a house. The waking mind may ask, whose house was it? Where was it? Why was the staircase in the kitchen? Fair questions, especially if the staircase really had no business being there. But the dream may not care about architecture. The house may be the self. A familiar room may be a known part of you. A basement may hold older material. An attic may hold forgotten thoughts. A hidden room may suggest an undiscovered possibility. A broken window may suggest vulnerability. A locked room may suggest something protected or avoided. The house is not one meaning, it is a structure of meanings. This is why symbols can feel personal and universal at the same time. Many people dream of houses, water, roads, animals, falling, flying, being chased, being late, losing teeth, finding hidden rooms, or returning to school. These patterns are common because human beings share certain basic experiences. We all know fear, change, desire, vulnerability, loss, uncertainty, longing, and the need for shelter. But the exact meaning of a symbol depends on the dreamer. A dog may mean friendship to one person, danger to another, childhood to another, responsibility to another. The symbol is shared, but the echo moves through a private chamber. This is also why simple dream dictionaries can be misleading. They often say, if you dream of water, it means emotion. If you dream of flying, it means freedom. If you dream of teeth falling out, it means anxiety. There may be some truth in these patterns, but dreams are rarely that obedient. Water can be emotion, yes, but it can also be memory, birth, grief, cleansing, drowning, beauty, danger, or the sound of rain on a roof when you were 6 years old. Flying can feel free, but it can also feel frightening, unstable, lonely, or out of control. Teeth falling out can involve anxiety, shame, speech, aging, loss of power, or simply the fact that you have a dentist appointment and your brain decided to make a full cinema production out of it. The symbol must be heard in context. What matters is not only what appears, but how it feels, what it does, and where it belongs in the dreamer's life. A snake curled peacefully in sunlight is not the same as a snake striking from the dark. A locked door in a safe home is not the same as a locked door in a collapsing building. A child smiling at you is not the same as a child lost in a crowd. Dreams speak through relationships between images, feelings, and personal history. Another reason dreams use symbols is that the brain is always connecting things by association. The waking mind likes straight roads. The sleeping mind prefers side paths. One memory leads to another because they share a mood, a colour, a person, a fear, a smell, or a body feeling. You may dream of an old classroom not because school itself matters, but because today you felt judged in the same way you felt judged there. You may dream of missing a bus not because transport is spiritually significant, though anyone who has missed the last bus may disagree, but because you feel that something in life is moving without you. The dream connects present and past through emotional resemblance. This is close to the way memory actually works. Memory is not a library where each event sits untouched on a separate shelf. It is more fluid than that. Memories are linked in networks. One detail can activate another. A present feeling can revive an old scene. An old fear can shape how a new event is stored. During sleep, as the brain processes memory and emotion, these networks may become active in unusual combinations. The result is symbolic because the mind is not simply replaying events. It is grouping them by meaning. A dream may combine a person from yesterday with a room from childhood and a problem from tomorrow. To waking logic, that is nonsense. To emotional logic, it may be perfect. The person from yesterday stirred a childhood feeling, and that feeling is connected to the future problem. The dream builds one scene to hold the whole pattern. It is not confused. It is condensed. It takes several strands of experience and ties them into one image. This condensation is one reason dreams can be so powerful. A single dream figure may carry many people. A single place may carry many memories. A single event may carry many fears. You may dream of one stranger, but that stranger may contain pieces of a parent, a friend, a rival, a part of yourself, and a mood you cannot name. The symbol works because it can compress complexity into experience. The dream does not need to show you the whole network. It gives you a living image from the network. In this way, dreams resemble echoes again. The returning echo is not the original shout. It is shaped by the walls, distances, curves, and hidden spaces it has passed through. A dream symbol is not the original experience. It is a transformed return from the deeper mind. A small event may enter sleep, travel through memory, emotion, bodily state, and old association, then return as a scene that seems unrelated on the surface. The surface has changed, but the pattern remains. This is especially true for emotions we have not fully admitted. The waking self can be very skilled at avoidance. It can say, "That did not hurt. I am not angry. I am not lonely. I do not care. I have moved on." Sometimes this is true. Sometimes it is a brave little performance by a mind trying to get through the day without collapsing into a puddle beside the toaster. The unconscious, however, may keep a more accurate record. It does not always accept the conscious explanation. If a feeling has charge, it may return in dreams, but it may return symbolically, because direct recognition would be too much. If the dream simply said, "You are still grieving," the waking self might reject it. If it gives you an empty house where someone's room remains untouched, you may be able to feel the truth before you defend against it. If it said, "You're afraid of losing control," you might argue. If it gives you a car rolling downhill with no brakes, the body understands immediately. Symbols can bypass the guard at the gate. They reach the emotional brain before the conscious mind has time to prepare its objections. This does not make dreams manipulative. It makes them intimate. The dream speaks in a form the whole self can feel. Words often belong to the conscious surface. Symbols can reach deeper layers. This may be why certain dreams stay with us for years. We may not be able to explain them, but we remember the image because it touched something language could not hold. There is another reason symbols matter. Dreams are not only about what has happened. They may also be about what is becoming. The mind does not only store the past, it also imagines futures. It rehearses possible dangers. It tests choices. It plays with new identities. Symbols are useful because they can show potential. A bridge may appear before a transition is consciously understood. A child may appear when a new part of life is beginning. A road may appear when the mind senses movement. A broken building may appear when an old structure of identity is failing. The dream does not say your life is entering a phase of transformation. It may simply show you packing a bag in a house you know you cannot stay in. Dreams often speak before the waking self has language for change. This is why people sometimes have powerful dreams before major life decisions, losses, illnesses, creative breakthroughs, or emotional realizations. Again, this does not require supernatural prophecy. The mind may be reading patterns already present. It may sense tension building beneath the surface. It may gather small clues from the body, relationships, routines, and emotions. Then it returns those clues in symbolic form. The dream seems to know because some part of you already knew, but not in words. This brings us close to the mystery of consciousness. Waking consciousness is often verbal, or at least shaped by language. We explain ourselves through stories. We say who we are by telling what happened. But dreaming consciousness reveals that experience does not need language in order to be meaningful. In dreams, you can understand a situation instantly without anyone explaining it. You can know that a place is dangerous, that a person matters, that something has been lost, that you must hurry, that you are not supposed to open the door. This knowing is direct. It is felt. It is symbolic awareness. Perhaps ordinary consciousness is only one translation of a much larger process. Beneath the words, the mind is always working with images, sensations, movements, and emotional maps. Waking life turns some of that into speech. Dreaming life lets it appear in its older form. The dream is not less intelligent because it is symbolic. It may be intelligent in a different way, one that belongs to pattern, association, and embodied meaning. This is why creative people often value dreams. Art, music, myth, and story also speak in symbols. A painting does not need to explain itself like a legal document. A piece of music does not need to say, "This is sorrow mixed with hope and a little bit of rain." It simply lets you feel it. Dreams are similar. They are private works of inner art, produced without conscious planning, often with questionable editing, but sometimes with astonishing emotional precision. They show that the mind can make meaning through image before explanation. The symbolic nature of dreams also protects mystery. Not every part of the self can be exposed directly without harm. Some memories must approach slowly. Some truths need disguise before they can be tolerated. Some emotions are too tangled to be named in one sentence. A symbol gives the psyche distance. It lets the dreamer encounter something indirectly. A frightening figure may be easier to face than the raw feeling it carries. A strange landscape may hold grief in a form the mind can move through. The dream gives shape to what would otherwise remain formless. There is kindness in that, though it may not feel kind at the time. A nightmare, for example, can be terrifying. But even nightmares may be the mind's attempt to process threat, fear, or trauma. The symbol becomes intense because the emotion is intense. The dream may not solve the pain, but it may reveal that the pain is active and seeking expression. When nightmares repeat, they may show that the mind is caught in a loop, returning again and again to a pattern that has not yet found safety. The symbol returns because the system remains disturbed, and when the symbol changes, something important may have shifted. A person who dreams for years of being chased may one night stop running and turn around. A locked room may open, a flood may drain, a monster may speak. These changes can feel small in the outer world, but inside they may matter deeply. The unconscious has returned the pattern in a new form. The echo has changed. The hidden system is reorganizing. This is why listening to dreams requires patience. We should not force them into meaning too quickly. A dream is not a riddle designed to make us feel clever when we solve it. It is more like a visitor speaking in a half-familiar language. You listen for tone, gesture, repetition, and feeling. You ask what the image brings to mind. You notice what part of the dream carries the strongest charge. You notice what was missing. You notice whether the dream repeats something from waking life, reverses it, exaggerates it, or answers it. A useful question is not only what does this symbol mean, it is what does this symbol do? Does it block, guide, threaten, protect, hide, reveal, invite, or transform? A door that will not open is doing something different from a door that opens by itself. A river you cross is different from a river that sweeps you away. A stranger who watches silently is different from one who gives you a key. Dreams speak in actions as much as objects. The meaning lives in movement. In this sense, a dream is closer to a small world than a message. It has space, mood, characters, rules, and events. The symbol is not separate from the dream environment. It belongs to the whole pattern. To understand the echo, you listen not only to the sound, but to the chamber that shaped it. So why do dreams speak in symbols instead of words? Because the deep mind is older than words. Because emotion is layered. Because memory works by association. Because symbols can hold many meanings at once. Because some truths are easier to approach indirectly. Because the unconscious does not think like a lecturer, but like an image maker. Because the sleeping brain builds worlds from patterns too complex for ordinary speech. And because consciousness itself may be rooted not only in language, but in the felt shapes of experience. As sleep carries the waking self farther from daylight, the mind returns to this ancient language. It does not ask permission. It does not always explain. It takes what has been forgotten, avoided, desired, feared, or half noticed, and gives it form. A room, a road, a face, a storm, a missing object, a voice calling from somewhere just out of sight. These are not random decorations scattered across the night. They may be the mind's way of making hidden patterns visible enough to be felt. And once dreams have shown us why they speak this way, we can begin to follow what they may be carrying. Beneath the symbol may be an old memory. Beneath the strange scene may be a fear the waking self has learned to step around. Beneath the impossible story may be a conflict still trying to find its shape. waiting in the dark for sleep to give it a voice. Forgotten memories do not always vanish in the way we imagine. They may disappear from the front of the mind, yes. They may lose their clear shape, their names, their dates, their clean edges. But that does not always mean they are gone. Sometimes they remain as moods. Sometimes they remain as body reactions. Sometimes they remain as preferences we cannot explain, fears that seem larger than the situation, sudden sadness on an ordinary afternoon, or a dream that returns us to a place we thought we had left behind years ago. The waking mind is very good at believing it knows itself. It says, I remember what matters. I know why I feel this way. I have moved on. I am not worried. I am fine. And perhaps it is fine, at least enough to get through breakfast, emails, laundry, and the strange little obstacle course of modern life. But beneath that confident surface, the deeper mind may be carrying older material. Not always in the form of clear memory, but as patterns, a tone of voice that makes the body tighten, a closed door that stirs an old feeling, a certain kind of silence that feels like rejection before anyone has actually rejected you. The past, in the unconscious, may not always behave like the past. Sometimes it behaves like a signal still active in the present. This is one reason dreams can feel so unsettling. They may bring forward material that waking life has carefully folded away. Not necessarily because the mind is trying to punish us, and not because sleep enjoys dramatic timing, though it certainly has a flair for staging. Dreams may return to forgotten memories because those memories still carry emotional energy. The event itself may be blurred, but the pattern remains. The fear remains, the longing remains, the question remains. And when sleep opens its hidden door, those signals beneath awareness can begin to rise. A forgotten memory is not always a lost photograph. Sometimes it is more like a melody you no longer remember learning, but somehow still hum when the right moment comes. You may not remember the first time you felt abandoned, but you may recognize abandonment quickly. You may not remember every moment you were criticized, but criticism may still reach you with unusual force. You may not remember the origin of a certain fear, but the body may remember the shape of it. The mind stores experience in many ways. Some memories are stories, others are sensations, others are habits of expectation, others are emotional maps that quietly guide us before conscious thought has time to speak. During the day, we rely on the conscious story. It helps us stay organized. It gives us identity. It says, this is what happened, this is who I am, this is why I do what I do. But dreams often bypass the official story. They move toward the emotional record. A person may say they had a perfectly normal childhood and then dream repeatedly of searching for a safe room. Another may insist they are not angry and then dream of fires, storms, broken glass, or animals showing their teeth. Someone may say they have no regrets and then dream of missed trains, unopened letters, or a younger version of themselves waiting in a place they cannot reach. The dream is not necessarily contradicting the person. It may be widening the picture. Waking life often simplifies memory so we can continue. Sleep may complicate it again so we can feel what was left behind. The unconscious does not always care whether a memory is convenient. It cares whether the pattern is still unfinished. Buried fears work in a similar way. A fear does not have to be named in order to influence us. In fact, many of the strongest fears operate quietly. The fear of failing, the fear of being unwanted, the fear of being trapped, the fear of needing someone too much, the fear of being seen, the fear of disappearing. These fears often hide beneath reasonable explanations. We say we are just being practical. We are just tired. We are just not ready. We are just avoiding trouble, and sometimes that is true. But sometimes the deeper mind has placed a fear beneath the floorboards, and we keep walking around the house wondering why certain rooms feel cold. Dreams may find those rooms. A buried fear rarely appears in its plain form. The dream does not always say, you are afraid of losing control. It gives you a car without brakes. It does not say you are afraid of being judged. It places you in public without the right clothes, without your notes, or back in school for an exam in a subject you somehow forgot existed. It does not say you fear abandonment. It gives you a phone that will not connect, a person who keeps walking away, a train leaving just as you arrive. These images may seem familiar because they are built from common human anxieties, but each dream carries its own private charge. There is something almost merciful in the use of symbols. The mind may not be able to face a fear directly. Direct language can be too sharp. A sentence can feel like a verdict. A symbol gives the fear a body, a landscape, a shape that can be approached. You can run from it, hide from it, speak to it, watch it change, or wake before it reaches you. The dream turns inner fear into experience, and experience can sometimes be worked with in ways that pure anxiety cannot. This is not always pleasant, of course. Nightmares remind us that dreams can become overwhelming. A nightmare may feel like the unconscious shouting through a locked door. Yet even nightmares may be signals. They may show where the mind is still carrying alarm. They may reveal that the nervous system has not yet learned that a danger has passed. They may return to scenes of helplessness, pursuit, falling, attack, exposure or loss because the body and brain are trying to process threat. Sometimes the mind replays fear because it is looking for mastery. Sometimes it repeats because it is stuck. Sometimes it returns because the waking self has not had enough safety to feel what happened. The signals beneath awareness are not only about trauma or pain, they can also be subtle. A dream may reveal resentment before you admit it. It may reveal desire before you allow it. It may reveal doubt before you can explain it. It may reveal hope, which can be just as frightening as fear, because hope asks us to risk disappointment. The unconscious is not simply a storehouse of darkness. It contains what has been excluded from awareness, and sometimes what we exclude is our own aliveness. A person who has learned to be cautious may dream of flying. A person who has learned to be obedient may dream of breaking rules. A person who has made themselves small may dream of a powerful animal walking beside them. A person who has forgotten play may dream of children, music, bright rooms, or impossible journeys. These dreams may carry signals of buried possibility. They may not be warnings. They may be invitations. They may say something in you is still moving, still wanting, still waiting for a place in daylight. This is where the deeper self becomes difficult to reduce. It does not only hide wounds, it also protects unfinished growth. It holds the parts of us that waking life had no room for. Maybe a talent that was discouraged. Maybe a question that was never allowed. Maybe a tenderness that felt unsafe. Maybe an anger that had to be swallowed. Maybe a dream of the future that seemed impractical. So it was placed quietly in the back of the mind where it continued to breathe. When sleep comes, these buried signals may rise in disguised form. You may dream of finding an instrument you used to play. You may discover a garden behind a wall. You may open a drawer and find letters. You may meet a younger version of yourself. You may enter a house and find rooms you never knew existed. These dreams can feel strangely moving because they are not only about loss, they are about return. Something forgotten comes back, not as history alone, but as a living possibility. Memory, fear, and desire are deeply linked. A forgotten memory can create a fear. A fear can bury a desire. A desire can revive a memory. The unconscious does not keep these things in separate folders. It links them through feeling. That is why one dream can contain so many layers. A person from childhood appears in a house from adulthood, while a future event waits outside the window. The waking mind says, "This is confused." The deeper mind may be saying, "These things share one emotional pattern." The idea of signals beneath awareness helps us understand this. We're always receiving more than we consciously notice. The brain listens to the world and the body with extraordinary sensitivity. It notices changes in breathing, posture, facial expression, rhythm, tone, and timing. It notices when someone's smile does not quite match their eyes. It notices when a room feels tense. It notices when the body is tired, hungry, threatened, or comforted. But not all of these signals become conscious thoughts. Many remain below the surface, influencing mood, attention, and expectation. Then at night, without the loudness of the outer world, the mind may revisit them. A small signal from the day may connect with an older signal from memory. The result may be a dream that seems bigger than the event that triggered it. This can confuse us. Why did such a small thing produce such a powerful dream? But perhaps the small thing was only the pebble. The deeper pond was already full of stored motion. Imagine someone hears a phrase during the day, something ordinary, perhaps even harmless. But the phrase resembles something once said in a painful moment. The conscious mind may not notice. It moves on. The body, however, tightens slightly. The emotional memory stirs. That night, the dream may not repeat the phrase. Instead, it may create a scene of being left outside a house in the rain. The waking person says, "Where did that come from?" The unconscious might answer, if it used words, from the echo that phrase awakened. This is how the past hides inside the present, not as a fixed recording, but as a readiness to respond. We do not carry memory only as images, we carry it as expectation. If you are often ignored, you may expect distance. If you are often criticized, you may expect judgment. If love was unpredictable, you may expect warmth to vanish. If safety was unstable, you may expect the floor to shift. These expectations may remain invisible until a dream gives them scenery. This is why many dreams return us to old places: childhood homes, schools, streets, bedrooms, kitchens, gardens, corridors. These places are not always important because of what happened there literally. They are important because they hold the emotional climate in which parts of the self were formed. A childhood hallway in a dream may carry the feeling of waiting. A schoolroom may carry comparison or pressure. A grandparent's kitchen may carry comfort, grief, or time passing. The dream uses places as emotional containers. It says, this old feeling belongs here, or began here, or still lives here in some form. Forgotten memories may also appear as people. Someone you have not thought about for years suddenly walks into a dream with great importance. This can be startling. Why that person? Why now? Sometimes the answer is simple. A recent reminder activated them. A smell, song, name, or passing resemblance stirred the memory. But sometimes the person represents a quality, a period of life, a wound, a wish, or a version of yourself that belonged to that time. The dream brings them back because they carry a pattern that is active again. A former friend may represent belonging. An old teacher may represent judgment. A lost relative may represent comfort or unfinished grief. A childhood rival may represent comparison. A stranger may carry pieces of several people at once. Dreams are economical in a strange way. They reuse familiar faces as symbols. The casting department of the unconscious is both creative and slightly chaotic, rather like a theatre company with unlimited costumes and no concern for chronological accuracy. Sometimes buried fears appear through the body inside the dream. You cannot run, you cannot speak, your teeth fall out, your legs are heavy, you're trying to scream but no sound comes. These dreams may connect with actual sleep physiology, but they also carry emotional meaning. They may express helplessness, loss of power, fear of exposure, or the inability to communicate. The body becomes part of the symbol. The dream does not simply show fear, it lets the dreamer inhabit fear physically. This is one reason dreams can be more powerful than thoughts. A thought can be kept at a distance. A dream gives you a body inside the feeling. You do not think I am unable to move forward. You try to walk and your legs will not respond. You do not think, I cannot speak my truth. You open your mouth and no sound comes. The dream translates psychological difficulty into lived sensation. It makes the invisible felt. And perhaps this is part of the healing potential of dreams. What becomes felt may eventually become known. What becomes known may eventually become integrated, not always quickly, not always easily. But a dream can start the process. It can bring a buried fear into a symbolic space where it can be remembered, considered, spoken about, drawn, written down, or simply held with more kindness. The signal beneath awareness becomes conscious enough to begin changing. This is why writing down dreams can sometimes matter. When a dream is remembered and put into words, even imperfectly, it crosses from the hidden system into waking awareness. The symbol becomes part of dialogue. The dreamer can ask, what feeling was strongest? Where do I know this from? What does this image remind me of? What is my waking life refusing to notice? The act of remembering does not solve everything, but it gives the echo a place to land. Still, dreams do not always need analysis. Sometimes the best response is simply to respect the feeling. A dream may say, you are tired, you are grieving, you are afraid, you need gentleness. Not every signal beneath awareness must be dissected like a museum specimen. Some simply need to be heard. The mind is not a machine we stand outside of with tools. It is the living field of our own experience. To listen too aggressively can become another form of control. To listen gently may allow meaning to unfold. The connection with quantum echoes remains useful here because it reminds us that hidden does not mean absent. In a complex system, information can be distributed beyond easy access. In the human mind, memory and emotion can also become distributed. A forgotten fear may not live in one place. It may live in posture, dreams, relationships, habits, and reactions. A buried desire may not appear as a direct thought. It may appear as envy, longing, imagination, or a repeated dream of open roads. A suppressed conflict may not announce itself during the day. It may return as a house divided into locked rooms. The dream is a return from complexity. It is not always reliable in the way a measurement is reliable. It does not give numbers or proof. It gives images, and images must be treated with humility. But dreams can show that beneath awareness, the mind is always working. It is always comparing the present with the past. It is always protecting, predicting, remembering, and sometimes warning. It listens even when we do not. It stores what we overlook. It keeps track of emotional debts that waking life would rather not pay. This is why some dreams arrive with the force of recognition. You wake and feel, yes, that is it, even if you cannot explain what it is. The dream has touched a hidden pattern with precision. It has made visible something that was already present but unnamed. It may be a fear you buried, a memory that still carries weight, or a signal from beneath awareness that has finally found a form. And as we move deeper into this idea, another strange question begins to rise. If the unconscious mind can gather forgotten memories and buried fears, if it can notice small signals before waking, awareness catches them, then perhaps some dreams that feel prophetic are not seeing the future at all. Perhaps they are reading the present more deeply than we can, following quiet patterns forward while the conscious mind is still pretending not to notice where they lead. Prophetic dreams have a special kind of weight. They do not feel like ordinary dreams. They do not drift away as quickly as the dream where you're trying to buy bread from a shop run entirely by cats, which is unusual but probably not a message from the cosmos. A prophetic dream feels sharper. It wakes you with a sense of importance. It may be quiet rather than dramatic, but it stays. You carry it through the morning. You think about it while making tea. You wonder why that particular image appeared, why that particular person returned, why that strange warning or scene seemed to point towards something that had not yet happened. Then, if life later resembles the dream, even slightly, the feeling can be astonishing. You dream of an old friend, and the next day they message you. You dream of a place, and soon after you see it in waking life. You dream that a relationship is breaking, and later, a difficult conversation proves that something really was wrong. You dream of danger, illness, loss, success, or a decision. And when events begin to move in that direction, it is very hard not to feel that the dream somehow knew. The dream becomes more than a dream. It becomes a signal, a warning, a glimpse, a strange little postcard from tomorrow. Human beings have always been fascinated by this. Long before modern neuroscience, dreams were often treated as messages from gods, ancestors, spirits, or fate. Kings, priests, healers, and ordinary people all look to dreams for guidance. A dream before a journey, a battle, a birth, or a death could be taken seriously. In many ancient cultures, the dreaming mind was not seen as private nonsense. It was a doorway into a wider reality. And even today, in our world of alarm clocks, brain scans, and slightly too many notification sounds, people still wake from certain dreams with the same old question. Did that dream know something I did not? Science usually approaches that question carefully, and rightly so. There is no solid evidence that dreams literally allow the mind to step outside time and observe future events as if tomorrow were already playing quietly in another room. That does not mean prophetic dreams are meaningless. It means we may need to understand them in a different way. Perhaps the dream is not seeing the future. Perhaps it is reading the present more deeply. Perhaps it is collecting signals that waking awareness has overlooked, following them forward and turning the likely direction of a pattern into a dream. This is where pattern recognition becomes important. The human brain is a prediction machine. It is always trying to guess what comes next. It does this so smoothly that we barely notice. When someone begins a sentence, your mind often anticipates the ending before they reach it. When you walk downstairs, your brain predicts where the next step will be. When you enter a room, you quickly sense whether the mood is relaxed or tense, often before anyone says a word. When a familiar person speaks differently, pauses longer, avoids your eyes, or changes their rhythm, part of you may notice before your conscious mind has built an explanation. Most of this prediction happens beneath awareness. You do not consciously calculate every signal. You do not say, their shoulders moved by a small amount, their tone fell slightly, their reply came later than usual, therefore something has changed. That would be exhausting, and also a very strange way to maintain friendships. Instead, the brain gathers details quietly. It compares them with memory. It notices mismatch. It senses direction. It creates a feeling, unease, curiosity, trust, doubt, attraction, warning. During waking life, you may ignore those feelings. You may be busy. You may not want them to be true. You may tell yourself not to overthink. You may prefer the comfortable story you already have. But the deeper mind keeps working. It does not need your full permission. It keeps tracking the pattern. Then, in sleep, the signals beneath awareness may return as dreams. This can make a dream seem prophetic when it's actually predictive in a very human way. Suppose someone dreams that a friendship is ending. In the dream, perhaps the friend is walking away through a train station, and no matter how loudly the dreamer calls, the friend does not turn around. A week later, the friendship becomes strained, or a conversation reveals distance that had been growing for some time. The dream now feels like a vision, but maybe the mind had already noticed the small withdrawals, fewer messages, shorter replies, a different kind of laugh, less warmth, more delay. The waking self did not want to name it, but the unconscious had been adding up the evidence. The dream did not create the future, it recognized a pattern already moving. This does not make the experience less powerful. In some ways, it makes it more intimate. The dream shows that some part of the mind is watching carefully even when the conscious self looks away. It suggests that intuition may sometimes be pattern recognition before language. That quiet inner sense that something is wrong or that something is about to change may not be magic. It may be perception working below the threshold of awareness. Of course, we must also talk about coincidence. Dreams are many, and life is full of events. Most dreams are forgotten. Some are remembered. A few will resemble something that happens later simply by chance. If you dream often enough about people, places, danger, messages, journeys, illness, arguments, and surprises, some of those dreams will eventually match waking life in a way that feels meaningful. The mind is very good at noticing matches and very bad at remembering all the misses. This is not a flaw exactly. It is part of how human attention works. We notice the hit. We forget the 100 strange dreams that predicted absolutely nothing, including the one about the moon being made of soup, which is probably safe to ignore. This tendency is sometimes called confirmation bias. We remember evidence that supports a belief and overlook evidence that does not. If you dream of someone and they call, the match feels astonishing. If you dream of someone and they do not call, the dream simply fades. Over time, the successful coincidences gather emotional importance, while the forgotten misses vanish from the record. The result can make dreams seem more prophetic than they really are. But there is another side to this. Not every meaningful dream is a coincidence. Some dreams may genuinely reflect unconscious pattern detection. The challenge is telling the difference. A dream that later matches an event may have been chance. It may have been based on subtle clues. It may have been shaped by worry, desire, or fear, or it may be meaningful not because it predicted an external event, but because it revealed an internal truth. The dream of a relationship ending may matter even if the relationship does not end. It may reveal fear of abandonment. It may reveal distance. It may reveal a need for connection. The future is not the only thing a dream can reveal. The mind's quiet predictions are not always about other people. Sometimes they are about the body. A person may dream of illness, injury, pressure, or bodily danger before noticing symptoms clearly while awake. This does not mean dreams diagnose the future. It means the body sends signals all the time, and some of them may be too subtle to reach conscious attention directly. A change in breathing, digestion, pain, tension, heartbeat, temperature, or energy may become woven into a dream. The mind may translate body signals into images. A tight chest becomes a heavy room. A fever becomes fire. Thirst becomes searching for water. Pain becomes attack, pressure, or obstruction. The dreaming mind does not always know the cause of a signal. It simply receives and transforms it. If the body is uneasy, the dream may create a story of unease. If the nervous system is alert, the dream may create a threat. If there is discomfort, the dream may give it shape. Sometimes, after waking, a person realizes the dream was connected to the body. The dream did not foresee illness. It felt the body before the waking mind did. There is also emotional prediction. The unconscious may sense when a decision is approaching before the conscious self admits it. You may dream of packing bags, crossing bridges, missing trains, entering new rooms, or watching old buildings fall. Later, you make a life change, and the dream seems prophetic. But perhaps the decision was already forming. The deeper mind had already begun to loosen its attachment to the old structure. The dream showed change before waking language had the courage to say, "I am ready." In this way, dreams may reveal the future of the self, not because they travel forward in time, but because they sense where inner movement is heading. A person may dream of water rising before a period of grief finally breaks open. Another may dream of a locked door opening before they become ready to speak about something hidden. Someone may dream of a child before beginning a new creative life. Not necessarily a literal child, but a new part of the self needing care. The dream is not predicting an event, it is showing a psychological development in symbolic form. Jung would have taken this seriously. He believed dreams could point toward what the psyche was trying to become. They did not merely replay the past, they could also anticipate inner growth. A dream image might show a possibility not yet conscious. It might introduce a guide, a path, a conflict, or a transformation before the waking self understood its importance. In this sense, a dream can feel prophetic because it belongs to a deeper process already unfolding. The unconscious may be ahead of the ego, not in time, but in awareness. That is an important distinction. The ego, the waking sense of I, often thinks it leads the life. It makes plans, announces intentions, and tries to appear informed. But the deeper mind may be preparing changes long before the ego is ready to acknowledge them. You may consciously decide something on a Thursday afternoon, but the dream life may have been circling the decision for months. By the time the waking self says, "I have made up my mind," the unconscious may politely think, "Yes, welcome to the meeting. We started without you." This can be seen in creative work as well. Many people have dreamed solutions to problems, images for art, lines of music, scientific ideas, or new directions. The dream seems to deliver an answer from nowhere, but often the mind has been working on the problem quietly. During waking life, effort gathers material. During sleep, the loosened logic of dreaming allows unusual connections. The answer appears suddenly because the conscious mind was not watching the whole process. The dream feels like prophecy or revelation, but it may be hidden work becoming visible. This is one of the gentler miracles of the sleeping mind. It continues. It does not stop when the waking self grows tired. It sifts, it compares, it rearranges, it connects distant memories, it tests emotional possibilities. It may build scenes that reveal where a pattern leads. When we wake, we receive only the result, and because we did not witness the process, the result feels mysterious. The quantum echo metaphor helps here again. In a complex system, information can become hidden from simple view. A disturbance spreads. The original signal seems gone. But under certain conditions, an echo returns, carrying information about the system's hidden structure. In dreams, the mind may take the small signals of waking life and send them into the deeper networks of memory, emotion, and prediction. During sleep, something returns. A dream, a scene, a warning, a symbol. It may feel like a message from the future, but it may be an echo from the present, shaped by hidden patterns already in motion. This does not reduce the mystery. It changes its location. Instead of asking whether the dream came from beyond time, we ask how much the mind knows without telling us. How many clues does it collect? How many patterns does it detect? How often does consciousness ignore what the body and unconscious have already noticed? The mystery moves from the stars into the nervous system, from fate into perception, from prophecy into the deep intelligence of the sleeping mind. There is something both humbling and comforting in that. Humbling, because the conscious self is not as fully in charge as it thinks. Comforting, because the mind may be more attentive than we realize. It may be caring for patterns beneath awareness, trying to warn, prepare, soften, or guide us in its own symbolic way. Not perfectly, not always wisely. Not with the reliability of a calendar or a weather report, which themselves have been known to betray us at picnics, but with a kind of quiet, ongoing attention. Still, we should be careful with prophetic dreams. It is easy to become frightened by them, or to give them too much authority. A dream of disaster does not mean disaster is coming. A dream of betrayal does not prove betrayal. A dream of death does not necessarily predict death. Dreams often use extreme images to express emotional states. Death in a dream may mean an ending, a change, a fear, a loss of identity, or simply the mind processing mortality. To treat every frightening dream as a literal warning would be exhausting, and most of us are already tired enough. A gentle approach is better. Ask what the dream may be noticing, not what it commands. Ask what pattern it reflects, not what fate it declares. Ask whether the dream is based on real clues, old fears, present anxiety, bodily signals, or emotional truth. A prophetic feeling may deserve respect, but not blind obedience. The waking mind and dreaming mind should be in conversation, not in a dictatorship where the dream wears a crown and starts issuing laws before breakfast. Sometimes a dream predicts nothing external and still matters deeply. Suppose someone dreams of being left behind. Nothing in waking life changes afterward. No one leaves. No event confirms the dream. Yet the dream reveals a buried fear that shapes relationships. It is meaningful, not because it foresaw the future, but because it exposed the emotional future the person keeps expecting. The dream says, "This is the pattern you carry. This is the tomorrow you fear even when today is safe." That may be the most important kind of prediction dreams make. They show us the futures we are unconsciously preparing for. If a person expects rejection, they may behave in ways that create distance. If they expect failure, they may avoid risk. If they expect danger, they may remain guarded even in love. Dreams can reveal these inner forecasts. They show not what must happen, but what the mind has been trained to anticipate. By becoming aware of the prediction, we may begin to change it. This is where dreams can become useful in waking life. Not as fortune-telling, but as emotional forecasting. They reveal where attention is needed. They show the direction of fear, hope, conflict, and desire. They may help us notice a relationship pattern before it hardens. They may help us name a feeling before it becomes a crisis. They may help us recognize that a decision is forming, that grief is rising, that anger has been buried too long, that the body is tired, that the self is changing. The dream is not always the answer. Sometimes it is the early signal, and early signals matter. A small tremor can reveal pressure beneath the ground. A faint echo can reveal the shape of a hidden chamber. A slight change in tone can reveal a shift in a relationship. A dream can reveal a pattern before waking life makes it obvious. This is why the prophetic feeling should not be dismissed too quickly. It may not be supernatural, but it may be sensitive. It may come from the mind's ability to notice what the ego has not yet accepted. There is also the role of emotion in strengthening these dreams. A dream that matches a later event becomes unforgettable because it touches awe. It makes the world feel connected. It gives the sense that inner and outer life are not separate. Even if the explanation is pattern recognition or coincidence, the experience can still feel meaningful. Human beings are not machines that only need correct data. We are meaning-making creatures. A dream that seems to meet the future can become part of our story. It can make us feel that something deep inside us is participating in life more fully than we knew. Perhaps that is why such dreams have always mattered. They remind us that the mind is not flat. It has hidden depths. It can gather clues, build simulations, and send back strange signals. It can turn a half-noticed truth into a vivid scene. It can create symbols that arrive before explanations. It can make us feel watched over by our own unconscious, which is not quite the same as being watched over by fate, but still rather remarkable. As we drift through this idea, the line between prophecy and perception becomes softer. A dream may not break the laws of time. It may not open a window into tomorrow. But it may show that tomorrow is often already beginning inside today. Future events are not always sudden. They grow from patterns, choices, tensions, signals, and changes that are already present. The unconscious mind may notice those beginnings. It may dream them forward. It may show us the direction of a path before we consciously see the path itself. And this returns us to the larger mystery of consciousness. If the dreaming mind can notice hidden patterns, process forgotten memories, carry buried fears, and simulate possible futures, then consciousness is not only the bright waking spotlight we usually call ourselves, it is also the dark stage behind it, the unseen crew moving scenery, the old scripts, the rehearsals, the whispered cues, the quiet predictions made before the curtain rises. Dreams reveal that the self is wider than awareness. They show that thinking continues when ordinary thought is silent. They suggest that the mind is always listening, always forming, always sending echoes back from beneath the surface. So when a dream feels prophetic, perhaps we can hold it gently. Not as proof that the future is fixed, not as a command, not as something to fear, but as a signal worth listening to. What pattern might this dream be reading? What small clues has my waking mind ignored? What fear, hope, or change is already moving inside me? What future am I unconsciously expecting? What future might I still choose differently? These questions do not close the mystery. They make it more useful. They let the dream remain strange without becoming superstition. They let science and symbolism sit in the same quiet room. They allow the prophetic dream to be neither dismissed nor worshipped, but heard as one of the mind's most curious echoes, a pattern returning from hidden awareness, pointing not only toward what may happen, but toward what is already happening beneath the surface of the self. And from there, the final question begins to gather its shape. If dreams can build worlds, reveal hidden memory, speak through symbols, and quietly predict the direction of inner life, then what do they tell us about consciousness itself? That strange inner light that can waken a body, vanish into sleep, and still find itself standing beneath a dream sky, believing for a little while that the impossible is real. Dreams may reveal something about consciousness that is easy to forget during the day. The world we experience is not simply placed in front of us like a finished picture. It is built by the mind moment by moment. When you are awake, this construction is anchored by the senses. Light reaches the eyes, sound reaches the ears. The body feels weight, pressure, warmth, movement, balance, hunger, and breath. The brain takes all of this and creates a stable world where tables stay tables, doors stay doors, and a cup of tea is usually not also your former mathematics teacher. Waking life feels solid because the mind and the outer world are constantly correcting each other. But in dreams, the outer world grows quiet, and still experience continues. You can stand in a city that does not exist. You can speak to someone who is not in the room. You can feel wind, fear, love, shame, surprise, and relief while your body lies still in bed. You can run without moving, fall without falling, enter a house that has never been built, and wake with a heartbeat that proves the experience mattered to the body. This is one of the great clues dreams give us. Consciousness does not need the waking world in the simple way we assume. It can generate a world from within. That does not mean waking life is unreal, and it certainly does not mean you should stop paying attention to staircases, traffic lights, or the kettle. The waking world has consistency, shared structure, and consequences that dreams do not. If you drop a mug while awake, it usually breaks, and no amount of symbolic interpretation will spare you from finding the broom. But dreams show that what we call reality, as experienced by us, is always filtered through the mind. We do not meet the world raw. We meet the world through perception, memory, expectation, emotion, and attention. The brain is not a passive window. It is an active builder. In waking life, this building happens so quickly and so smoothly that it seems invisible. You look around the room and simply say, "This is the room." You do not notice the brain combining light, shape, memory, body position, and meaning into a coherent scene. You do not notice that your sense of space is being maintained, your sense of self is being updated, and your expectations are quietly predicting what should happen next. It all feels immediate. It feels given. But dreams pull back the curtain a little. They show the same world-building machinery working without its usual supply of outside material. The result is unstable, strange, emotional, and sometimes deeply convincing. This may be why dreams feel like a laboratory for consciousness. Not a laboratory with white coats and clipboards, but an inner one. Each night, the mind runs experiments in reality making. It tests how little input is needed to create a world. It shows how memory can become place, how feeling can become weather, how fear can become pursuit, how longing can become a person returning through a doorway. Dreams reveal that consciousness is not just awareness of the world. It is the creation of a meaningful world around awareness. The dream self is another clue. In most dreams, there is someone experiencing the scene. That someone may feel like you, But dream identity can be surprisingly flexible. Sometimes you are fully yourself, sometimes you are younger, sometimes you are watching yourself from outside, sometimes you seem to be another person entirely, while still somehow knowing the experience belongs to you. The waking self, with its name, address, history, habits, and opinions about breakfast, is not as fixed in dreams as it feels during the day. It can soften, shift, or disappear into the story. This tells us that the self is also constructed. During waking life, the self feels stable because memory and body sensation keep tying it together. You remember who you are, you recognize your body, you know your surroundings, you carry your personal story forward. But in dreams, that story can be rearranged. You may accept impossible changes without surprise. You may forget your waking life entirely and still have a point of view inside the dream. Consciousness then may not require the full waking identity we usually call the self. It may require only a center of experience, a place from which the dream world is felt. That is a strange and important idea. The self we defend so carefully during the day may be only one form consciousness takes. A useful form, certainly. Without it, we would have a difficult time remembering appointments, maintaining relationships, or explaining to a delivery driver why we are wearing one slipper. But it may not be the deepest form. Dreams suggest that consciousness can exist with a looser self, a shifting self, a symbolic self. The dreamer is both creator and participant, author and character, stage and audience. This is why dreams can feel so real while they are happening. The brain does not always label internally generated experience as internal. In the dream, the world is simply there. A street stretches ahead. A voice calls. A door opens. The dreamer responds as if events are happening in a real environment because, from the point of view of consciousness, they are happening as experience. The source is different, but the feeling is immediate. The tiger in a dream is not a physical tiger, and for that we can all be grateful, especially those of us who already struggle with small spiders. But the fear can be real. The body responds, the heart races. The mind believes the scene long enough for emotion to take hold. This reveals something about reality as we live it. We do not respond only to the physical world. We respond to the world as interpreted by the mind. A memory can make the body tense. An imagined future can cause anxiety. A dream can bring tears. A story can change a life. Human reality is not made only of objects and events. It is made of meaning. Dreams make that obvious because they strip away the outer object and leave meaning still active. There may be no actual house, but the dream house can hold grief. There may be no actual ocean, but the dream ocean can hold fear, depth, and change. There may be no actual person in the room, but a dream meeting can awaken love or loss that lasts into the morning. This does not make dreams equal to waking reality. It shows that reality has layers. There is physical reality, the shared world that continues whether or not we are paying attention. There is biological reality, the body's rhythms, signals, and needs. There is psychological reality, the world of memory, fear, desire, imagination, and meaning. Dreams belong most strongly to psychological reality, but they are not detached from the body or brain. They arise from living tissue, sleeping cycles, emotional systems, and memory networks. They are both physical events in the brain and inner experiences in the self. That double nature is part of what makes them so fascinating. Consciousness has the same double nature. From the outside, a person sleeping is a body in a bed. We can measure brain activity, breathing, muscle tone, eye movement, and heart rate. From the inside, that same person may be walking through a childhood garden, speaking to someone long gone, or standing under a dream sky that feels endless. Both views are true, but neither fully replaces the other. The outside view gives mechanisms, the inside view gives experience. Dreams remind us that any full account of consciousness must somehow hold both. This is one reason the mystery remains so difficult. Science can study the brain during sleep. It can map activity, compare sleep stages, investigate memory and emotion, and learn a great deal about why dreaming happens. But the felt quality of the dream, what it is like to be inside it, remains something only the dreamer directly knows. You can describe your dream to someone, but they cannot enter it. You can say the hallway was dark, the air was heavy, the person at the end of it felt familiar, but the actual experience belongs to you. Consciousness is private in this special way. It can be studied from the outside, but it is lived from within. Dreams sharpen that problem because they create worlds no one else can verify. If you tell someone you dreamed of a red house on a hill, they can hear the words, but they cannot inspect the house. They cannot test the hill. They cannot ask the dream weather for a second opinion. The dream exists as an experience, and then as a memory of an experience. It is fragile, personal, and often fading even as you try to describe it. Yet it can still matter. It can still change your mood, reveal a fear, comfort a grief, or leave you with a question that feels important. This is why dreams sit at the edge of science and meaning. Neuroscience can explain many pieces. Psychology can explore patterns. Jungian thought can offer symbolic depth. The quantum echo metaphor can help us imagine hidden information returning from complexity. But the dream itself remains a lived event. It is not only data. It is a night world that someone inhabited. A theory can help us understand it, but it cannot entirely replace the feeling of waking from it and lying still for a moment, trying to hold the last image before daylight takes it. Perhaps dreams reveal that consciousness is not one simple thing. It is not merely logical thought. It is not merely the ability to speak. It is not only attention, memory, emotion, or perception. It is all of these woven together in changing ways. During the day, the weave is tight and practical. During dreams, the weave loosens. Threads cross in unusual patterns. Memory joins imagination. Emotion shapes space. The body becomes scenery. The past walks into the present. Possible futures appear as symbolic rehearsal. Consciousness keeps going, but it changes its form. This changing form matters. It suggests that our ordinary waking mind is only one setting of a much larger instrument. The brain can produce focused attention, daydreaming, memory, imagination, deep sleep, vivid dreaming, lucid dreaming, and those soft in-between states where thoughts become images before sleep fully arrives. Each state reveals a different way of being conscious, or near conscious, or somewhere on the border. We often treat waking awareness as the main truth and dreams as a strange side effect. But dreams may be showing us abilities of the mind that waking life keeps hidden, because it has more practical work to do. In dreams, the mind can simulate. It can build possible worlds. This may have helped human beings survive. A dream can rehearse threats, social conflicts, losses, escapes, choices, and unfamiliar situations. It can let the brain practice emotion without the immediate danger of the outer world. Sometimes this practice is unpleasant, but it may still be meaningful. The sleeping mind may be asking, what would I do if I were abandoned, chased, judged, trapped, or forced to change? It creates scenes in which the self confronts possibility. Not always gracefully, of course. The dream self has been known to respond to danger by running very slowly, hiding badly, or forgetting how doors work. Still, the rehearsal may matter. Dreams also show that memory is not a fixed archive. The past is not stored like a film reel waiting to be replayed. It is reconstructed. It changes when remembered. It joins with emotion, current concerns, and imagined futures. Dreams make this visible by remixing time. A person from childhood appears in an adult workplace. A future fear unfolds in an old house. A dead relative speaks in a place you have never been. The dream does not respect chronological order, because the emotional mind is not organized only by calendar time. It is organized by meaning. Things that feel similar can stand side by side, even if years separate them. This may reveal something about the self. We are not simply moving forward, leaving the past behind like scenery through a train window. We carry the past as active pattern. We carry possible futures as expectation. We live in the present, but the present is thick with memory and prediction. Dreams show this thickness. They bring different times into one room and let them speak to each other. A dream may contain the child you were, the adult you are, and the future you fear or hope for, all in one strange scene. That is not logical time, but it may be psychological truth. Reality, too, is experienced through prediction. The brain is always guessing what the world is about to do. Most of the time, those guesses are corrected by sensory input. In dreams, the correction is reduced, so prediction becomes world. Expectation becomes event. Fear becomes monster. Desire becomes reunion. Uncertainty becomes a shifting maze. This is why dreams can seem to reveal the mechanics of perception. They show the mind generating a model when external correction is weak. Waking perception may be a more controlled version of this same process, a negotiation between inner prediction and outer signal. If that is true, then dreams are not meaningless interruptions. They are windows into the machinery that makes waking experience possible. The same brain that dreams is the brain that sees, remembers, loves, worries, imagines, and decides. The dream world is unusual, but it is made from the same mind that builds the waking world. Studying dreams may therefore teach us not only about sleep, but about perception itself. It may show how consciousness turns signals into scenes, feelings into meaning, and patterns into a world one can inhabit. The idea of the quantum echo returns here gently. In a complex system, information can become hidden, scrambled, spread across parts, and then return under the right conditions as a detectable pattern. In the mind, waking experiences enter a deep system of memory, emotion, body, and prediction. Much of that processing remains invisible, but in sleep, something returns, a dream, an image, a scene, a feeling. The dream may not be a literal message, but it can be a returning pattern from the hidden self. It makes the invisible partially visible, not by explaining it, but by letting consciousness live inside it for a while. This may be one of the most important things dreams reveal. Consciousness does not only observe patterns, it becomes them. In a dream of being lost, consciousness does not simply notice confusion. It enters confusion as a city with no clear road. In a dream of grief, it does not simply think sadness. It stands in an empty room or sees a person who cannot stay. In a dream of change, it may cross a bridge, move house, pack a bag, or watch the sea rise. The mind turns inner states into realities and then places the self inside them. That is both strange and profoundly human. And perhaps this is why dreams can help us understand ourselves. Not because they give simple answers, but because they offer experiences that waking thought might avoid. A dream can make us feel the truth of a fear before we explain it. It can show the shape of a desire before we admit it. It can bring back a forgotten memory as a place we can walk through. It can reveal that something unresolved is still active, or that something new is trying to begin. It can be messy, exaggerated, symbolic, and occasionally absurd, but it is not empty. The reality of dreams is not the same as the reality of the waking world, but it is still a form of reality inside consciousness. A nightmare is not physically happening, yet the terror is real. A dream reunion may not bring back the person who is gone, yet the love felt in the dream is real. A dream warning may not predict an event, yet the unease it reveals may be real. The dream world dissolves, but the experience leaves traces, and traces matter. They become part of memory, mood, story, and self-understanding. As we reach the quiet end of this journey, it may help to look back at what dreams have shown us. Sleep is not only a shutting down, it is a doorway. Dreams are not only random pictures, they can be echoes from deeper layers of the mind. Symbols are not just decorations, they are the language of complex feeling. Prophetic dreams may not break time, but they may reveal the mind's quiet skill at reading patterns before waking awareness can speak them. Consciousness in all of this appears wider than the bright daytime self. It continues in darkness, it builds worlds, it listens beneath words, it remembers what we forget. So maybe the dreaming mind is not an escape from reality. Maybe it is one of the ways reality is processed, softened, rearranged, and returned to us. The day enters sleep as experience, the night transforms it, the morning receives what remains. Sometimes nothing is remembered, sometimes only a fragment. Sometimes a dream stays like a small stone in the pocket, carried for reasons we do not fully understand. It may be a warning, a memory, a wish, a fear, a rehearsal, or simply the mind cleaning its inner rooms with unusual enthusiasm. But even then, it belongs to the larger mystery of being conscious at all. And now, here you are, a little farther along your own night, your own thoughts perhaps softer than when we began. Maybe you're still awake, listening from a quiet room. Maybe your eyes are closed and the border between words and images is already beginning to blur. Maybe some part of your mind is preparing its own strange theatre, gathering the day's small signals, old memories, unfinished feelings and quiet predictions into scenes that will rise only when the waking self steps aside. Before you drift completely, let me ask you gently once more, where are you listening from tonight, and what hour has found you there? Are you near the end of the day, at the beginning of one, or somewhere in that soft in-between where time starts to feel less like a clock and more like a room with dim lights? If this journey through dreams, echoes and consciousness has brought you a little calm, I would be grateful if you liked the video, subscribed, or shared this sleepy corner of science with someone who might enjoy a gentle question before rest. Dreams may never give us a complete map of the mind. Consciousness may remain one of the deepest puzzles we can ask about, but perhaps that is all right for tonight. Not every mystery needs to be solved before sleep. Some can simply be held. Some can be allowed to breathe in the dark. And as the night continues, your own hidden mind will keep working quietly beneath awareness, listening, sorting, remembering, and perhaps sending back its own soft echoes from the deeper self. Sleep well, fellow dreamer, wherever you are and wherever the night takes you next.